Chapter 1885. If you can't beat him, just shake him down. Tang Xiao sat silently on the sofa in his office, staring up at the ceiling. He was deep in thought, contemplating his next move. Should he capture Caral and hand her over to Gus Zerlane? Or should he accept this traitorous Night Sister witch and prepare for a confrontation with Gus Zerlane? Tang Xiao's fingers tapped rhythmically on the table, the sound echoing like a heavy hammer in Carol's heart. From Carol's perspective, her life hung in the balance. Both the Death Angel before her and Gus Zerlane of Dathomir were powerful enough to end her life with ease. Carol had witnessed the rise of the Fourth Civilization. She had been living in seclusion on the planet Endor, plotting to use her powers to enslave the primitive Ewok people and become the queen of a primitive society on a remote planet. If the original plot had unfolded as intended, her actions would have grown increasingly extreme and insane, ultimately leading to her defeat. However, the arrival of the Fourth Civilization changed everything. Carol observed the small colonial team and the Glory Mothership in synchronous orbit, dropping modular buildings. She realized she stood no chance against these newcomers. Despite their small numbers, the colonists were armed and well-trained, and their massive spaceship was a formidable force. Carol knew her magic was no match for their might, so she chose to hide. Understanding the Ewok language, Carol occasionally emerged to trade small items with the Ewok people. This deviation from the original plot transformed her from an evil witch into a reclusive master. Tang Xiao pondered the potential outcomes of handing Carol over to Gus Zerlane. He realized he stood to gain nothing. Gus Zerlane was too powerful, ill-tempered, and domineering. Carol alone could not solve the problem. What if he kept Carol? She was a powerful witch of the Night Sisters with a unique understanding of the Force. Through her, he could learn more about the Night Sisters and the planet Dathomir. Tang Xiao sensed that something significant, left behind by Darth Tenebris, was connected to Dathomir. But Gus Zerlane was undeniably stronger, and Carol possessed an artifact created by Gus Zerlane, a ring that allowed her to transform into a crow and conceal her aura. Gus Zerlane would never relinquish this ring. If she obtained it, she could become an unstoppable assassin, even capable of challenging Darth Sidious. Suddenly, Tang Xiao's thoughts crystallized, and a smile spread across his face. If he couldn't defeat Gus Zerlane, he could shake things up. A terrifying old witch with ambitions to rule the galaxy would surely draw attention. The Galactic Empire's Emperor, Palpatine, would have to take notice. Tang Xiao chuckled at the thought. His laughter echoed in the room, catching Carol's attention. The witch Carol finally relaxed. She understood that her life was probably saved. "My lord," Carol asked tentatively. "Okay, come with me." Tang Xiao stood up and pointed to the secret room door behind him. Carol hesitated for a moment, then lowered her head and adjusted the clothes on her chest, as if she might have made a mistake. "Would I be interested in you, an old woman in her 100s? Tang Xiao smiled coldly and said, "I will introduce you to a big shot." "Big shot? Who is it?" Carol was stunned for a moment. Tang Xiao smiled but didn't answer. "Jijij." Darth Sidious in the holographic projection let out an unpleasant laugh. "Ah, isn't this our noble Duke of Dawn, Darth Malthael? You actually take the initiative to come to me, an old man. What advice do you have?" "Your Majesty the Great Emperor, if you are an old man, then there will be no young people in this galaxy," Darth Malthael complimented without sincerity. "I can't miss you as my senior brother, and then I will look for you to reminisce about old times." Darth Sidious was obviously disgusted by Darth Malthael calling him brother, and he always considered it an insult. But he did not attack on the spot. Instead, he laughed strangely and said, "Ah, if you are willing to dedicate Count Dooku's head to me, maybe I will reward you with the opportunity to have dinner with me." Carol on the side was almost stunned. She had no idea that the big shot Tang Xiao was talking about was actually the Emperor of the Galaxy Empire, the most powerful being in this galaxy. Her body trembled, and if Tang Xiao hadn't used invisible force to support her, she might have knelt down again. "Count Dooku, I'll leave this feast to you. I know you need this more than me," Darth Malthael said, his tone mocking Palpatine's political instability. "The time I have left for you is limited. Tell me honestly, what's the matter with you?" Darth Sidious's tone turned cold. Tang Xiao took a step to the side, projecting Carol into the holographic display. This is a witch who defected from the Sisters of the Night, and she brought me extremely shocking news. On the planet Dathomir, an incredible being has been resurrected. Who on the planet Dathomir? Darth Maul? Darth Sidious asked. Oh no, I think the grass on Darth Maul's grave has already been several meters high, so don't mention this dead man anymore, Darth Malthael said, not hesitating to conceal the information that Darth Maul was probably still alive. He glanced at Darth Sidious and asked, Do you know the founder of the Sisters of Darkness? On Darth Sidious's wrinkled forehead, the wrinkles of his eyebrows became deeper and deeper. The founder of the Sisters of Darkness, an extremely powerful witch, the creator of shadow magic. I know of such an existence, but... He shook his head and said, I don't know this person. End of chapter. Chapter 1886, Siege Plan. Darth Malthael spoke with a grave tone. Her name is Gethzarian. Perhaps hundreds of years ago, Gethzarian died or fell into a deep sleep, but now, for unknown reasons, she has been resurrected. Carol quickly bowed to Darth Sidious and added, In the legends of our Sisters of the Night, Gethzarian is an extremely powerful being, comparable to a god. Her breath can cause storms, her footsteps can shake the earth, and her roar can tear the sky apart. She single-handedly founded the Sisters of the Night, wrote the Book of Shadows, and created shadow magic. She pulled the planet Dathomir into darkness. Darth Sidious waved his hand impatiently. You brought a witch to tell me this fairy tale? Darth Malthael interjected. Actually, this fairy tale is true. Gethzarian's power far surpasses ours. If she were to march towards the heart of the Empire, she would likely be unstoppable. Hearing this, Darth Sidious fell silent. After a moment, he asked, Since Gethzarian has been dormant for hundreds of years, how powerful is she? And how did you come to know this? Tang Xiao responded directly. Asajj Ventress and Savage Opress, two powerful generals under Count Dooku, did not participate in the Battle of Saleucami. Instead, they returned early to the planet Dathomir. I sent my apprentice to explore Dathomir, and she sensed Gethzarian's power from afar. According to her, Gethzarian's power far exceeds mine. Do you want me to kill her? Darth Sidious asked. Let's join forces and kill her, Tang Xiao suggested. She is not someone any of us can fight alone. Darth Sidious fell silent again. Darth Malthael continued, I don't think a being with such immense power would remain on Dathomir. When she realizes that our galactic empire is in turmoil, she will undoubtedly try to seize an opportunity in this chaotic era. How do you propose we join forces? Darth Sidious inquired. Seal the planet Dathomir and bomb it from orbit. If she survives, we will kill her ourselves, Darth Malthael said decisively. If she is truly that powerful, she will soon detect our intentions for orbital bombardment. If she hides underground to avoid the bombing and then escapes, she could use her invincible power to wreak havoc across the galaxy. That would be disastrous, Darth Sidious said thoughtfully, clearly considering the threat Gethzarian posed. This was precisely why Darth Malthael sought him out. He knew that once Darth Sidious understood Gethzarian's power, he would not stand idly by. In the original plot, Darth Sidious was wary of Gethzarian, and now, as the Emperor of the Galactic Empire, he could not allow such a threat to exist. Darth Sidious could temporarily tolerate Darth Malthael because he knew Malthael could not kill him. Moreover, Malthael had a vast empire and responsibilities. If he attempted anything, he couldn't abandon the enormous foundation of the Dawn Principality. At least on the surface, things would remain stable. However, if Gethzarian, with her immense power and a Night Sisterhood of tens of thousands, roamed the galaxy, the danger would be immense. Her intentions were unpredictable. If she suddenly decided to join Count Dooku or Darth Malthael, the situation would worsen. Such an uncontrollable and highly variable threat needed to be eliminated as soon as possible for peace of mind. So what do you propose? Darth Malthael asked. Now that we have agreed to join forces, let's gather a few more allies and travel to Dathomir to confront this legendary witch. If the threat is indeed significant, we will join forces to eliminate her, Darth Sidious said ominously. Darth Malthael nodded in agreement. Darth Sidious paused for a moment and then said, All right, let's each gather a few powerful allies and head to the planet Dathomir. We'll find an opportunity to eliminate her once and for all. Heh! Darth Sidious laughed sinisterly. Very well, see you on Dathomir in a week. You'd better not try any tricks on me. Of course not. This time, we shall have a fruit. Full cooperation, Darth Malthel replied with a bright smile. However, he was already contemplating the possibility of trapping Sidious on Dathomir and eliminating him. It would be wonderful if he could achieve that. Of course, Sidious likely had the same idea. After the communication ended, Tang Xiao turned to the witch Carol, who was standing nearby, and asked, I'm concerned about one thing. What if Gus Zerlane joins forces with Darth Sidious? If she were to join forces with that emperor, it wouldn't be like her. According to legend, she is ambitious and constantly seeks greater power. Unless the emperor is willing to give her half of the Galactic Empire, she would rather obtain it herself. In the Book of Shadows, her domineering character is evident in every word, Cheryl replied, shaking her head. Tang Xiao felt somewhat relieved and then asked, Based on your understanding, what are Gus Zerlane's weaknesses? She is already a mythical figure among the Sisters of the Dark Knight, and I don't know how accurate the records about her are. But the only thing I can think of is that the shadow magic recorded in the Book of Shadows seems to lack defensive spells, Charles answered. Tang Xiao narrowed his eyes, contemplating. An ultimate attacker, but lacking defensive means? Indeed, in the original plot, the extremely powerful Gus Zerlane was still killed by Luke Skywalker. This suggests that while she is powerful, any opportunity to harm her could yield significant results. After pondering for a while, Tang Xiao asked tentatively, So, if we want to surround Gus Zerlane, what do you think we should do? Carol shook her head again. I don't know. She died hundreds of years before I was born, leaving only legends. If I had to suggest something, it would be that she was extremely confident in her own power and never thought she would have an opponent. If I must propose a plan, perhaps I could use the power of the artifact to transform into a crow and wait for an opportunity to strike. Tang Xiao shook his head. I don't want you to participate in this battle, and I also recommend that you don't bring that ring with you. When the time comes, just follow us and observe the battle. With your current strength, you won't be able to get close to our battlefield. Carol hesitated for a moment at the thought of leaving the ring behind, but eventually nodded in agreement. End of chapter. Rest and refuel. The planet Dathomir was vast and untamed, its landscape a mix of dense jungles, treacherous swamps, and rugged mountains. The air was thick with the presence of the Force, a palpable energy that seemed to hum with ancient power. Darth Lilim's frustration grew with each passing hour. The scanner continued to show nothing but wilderness, and the absence of any signs of the Night Sisters or their settlements was disconcerting. She knew that the Night Sisters were adept at hiding, using their knowledge of the Force to cloak their presence, but this level of concealment was unprecedented. As she flew over a particularly dense section of jungle, the scanner beeped, indicating a faint energy signature. Darth Lilim's eyes narrowed as she adjusted the fighter's course, descending closer to the treetops. The signature was weak, but it was the first sign of anything unusual she had encountered. She landed the fighter in a small clearing, the stealth system still engaged to avoid detection. Exiting the cockpit, she activated her personal cloaking device, rendering herself nearly invisible. The jungle was alive with the sounds of alien wildlife, and the air was thick with humidity. Moving silently through the underbrush, Darth Lilim followed the energy signature deeper into the jungle. The terrain was challenging, with thick vines and roots threatening to trip her at every step. She pressed on, her senses heightened, ready for any sign of danger. After what felt like hours, she emerged into a small clearing. In the center stood a stone altar, covered in ancient runes that glowed faintly with the Force. Surrounding the altar were the remains of what appeared to be a ritual site, with charred bones and remnants of offerings scattered around. Darth Lilim approached the altar cautiously, her eyes scanning the area for any signs of a trap. The energy signature was stronger here, emanating from the runes on the altar. She reached out with the Force, trying to sense any lingering presence or clues about what had happened to the ghost agents. As she touched the altar, a vision flashed before her eyes. She saw the ghost agents, surrounded by Night Sisters, their faces twisted in fear and pain. The Night Sisters were performing a dark ritual, drawing power from the agents and the Force itself. The vision ended abruptly, leaving Darth Lilim with a sense of urgency. She knew she had to act quickly. The Night Sisters were using the ghost agents in their rituals, and if she didn't stop them, more lives would be lost. She activated her communicator, sending a coded message to Severance Tan, informing her of the situation and requesting reinforcements. With her message sent, Darth Lilim turned her attention back to the altar. She needed to find the Night Sisters' main settlement and put an end to their dark rituals. The fate of the ghost agents and the balance of power on Dathomir depended on it. She moved swiftly through the jungle, her senses attuned to any signs of the Night Sisters. The vision had given her a glimpse of their location, and she followed the faint trail of energy that lingered in the air. The jungle seemed to close in around her, the shadows growing deeper as she approached her destination. Finally, she reached the edge of a large clearing. In the center stood a massive stone structure, ancient and foreboding, the Night Sisters' main settlement. Darth Lilim could see figures moving within, their dark robes blending with the shadows. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the battle ahead. The Night Sisters were powerful, but she was determined to save the ghost agents and put an end to their dark rituals. With the Force as her ally, she stepped into the clearing, ready to face whatever awaited her. Darth Lilim decided to take a rest and recharge the stealth system. Despite her efforts, she found nothing. On the second day, she flew to the night hemisphere of the planet, and suddenly, the scanner intercepted a weak signal. Darth Lilim felt a surge of excitement as she realized it was the signal from the ghost agent. The signal was very weak and clearly under significant interference, but she could still determine a rough direction. She quickly accelerated her fighter jet and flew towards the source. Soon, she arrived at a dense jungle. She landed the fighter jet on a grassy field, opened the hatch, and jumped out. For this mission, she wore a stealth combat suit specially designed for ghost agents. This combat suit, made of biological materials, offered excellent protection, could operate in various harsh environments, and had auxiliary power to enhance the user's speed and strength. Best of all, the suit could turn invisible when activated using the Force. Therefore, the ghost agents could use this combat suit, and so could Darth Lilim. Tyron Heavy Industries had long planned to issue such combat uniforms to all Force-sensitive warriors in the Principality of Dawn. This was Limingworks' first large-scale application of Force technology. Darth Lilim activated the cloaking device, and with the strength of her Force, she could achieve continuous invisibility around the clock. She then raised her hand and waved, causing countless fallen leaves and branches around her to fly up and bury her Viking fighter tightly underneath. After that, she raised the universal tool on her wrist, clicked it, locked onto the direction of the signal, and began to walk carefully. Finding the signal generator was not difficult. Darth Lilim discovered it buried in the roots of a large tree at the edge of the jungle. However, the interference was getting worse. Darth Lilim frowned. The forest not only had a complex electromagnetic environment, but also powerful force flows. No wonder her mid-air scans had turned up nothing. These chaotic magnetic fields could interfere with instruments and equipment, and the powerful force fluctuations could gradually lead people into hallucinations and even madness. She now understood why her master, Darth Malthael, had once told her that the best way to attack the planet Dathomir was to send an army of robots to burn it all the way in. Now that she had found the signal generator, it at least meant that the ghost agents sent before had been here. Darth Lilim looked around and sneered. She then raised her hand, and the powerful force immediately surrounded the generator. Soon, a few faint shadows appeared in front of her. These phantoms couldn't be seen clearly, but they could be distinguished as ghost agents. They were forming a defensive formation, walking very carefully towards the depths of the jungle. It was evident they had encountered strong enemies before this. Without hesitation, Darth Lilim followed them. Chapter 1888. Arriving Early. The phantoms were the remnant souls of ghost agents summoned by Darth Lilim through her own power. Through this, she could see what these ghost agents were doing when they placed the signal generator. This was a skill she had learned in the Valley of the Sleeping King on the planet Korriban, where Darth Malthael had sent her to undergo the trial of the Sith Ghost. She observed these shadows moving forward cautiously, clearly wary of their surroundings, as if they anticipated an attack. Following the phantoms, she saw them engage in several skirmishes along the way, and the phantoms of 3 agents disappeared, indicating they had perished in battle. Sisters of the Night? Darth Lilim muttered to herself. As she moved forward, she found she no longer needed to track the remnant souls. The ground had become chaotic, with numerous signs of fighting and bloodstains. A fierce battle had taken place here, and many had died. Darth Lilim unclipped the hilt of her lightsaber and held it in her hand, but did not ignite it to avoid revealing her presence. She continued to follow the traces through a dense jungle until she was stunned by what she saw. This was a Shura field. In the middle of the secluded jungle, there was a small clearing. The surrounding trees had been transformed, with many tree houses built among them, making the area very hidden. From the air, one would only see an expanse of jungle. But here, bloodstains were everywhere, and small pieces of stumps and minced flesh were scattered around. The tree houses were severely damaged, and fires had been set. The strangest thing was that there were no bodies. This made no sense, as a battlefield of this scale would have resulted in at least hundreds of deaths. Darth Lilim searched among the ruins and finally found some melted-down Ghost Agent battlesuits. These combat uniforms had a special device that caused them to self-destruct at extremely high temperatures when the wearer's heart stopped, preventing the enemy from obtaining and researching them. Among these melted combat uniforms, she found the carbonized corpses of the Ghost Agents. Whoever had collected the bodies had no interest in these burnt remains. Were the Ghost Agents on a killing spree here? It didn't seem likely. Judging from the state of the remnant souls, the Ghost Agents had been severely damaged by the time they arrived, and people were still dying. They couldn't have had much combat power left. So, was this village the home of the Night Sisters? If so, who had destroyed it? The mysteries were mounting. At that moment, Darth Lilim felt an extremely powerful and undisguised force presence in the air. She also heard the sound of an engine. Looking up, she saw a Lambda-class shuttle passing through the sky, with a gear symbol clearly visible on its hull. The spaceship of the Galactic Empire. Darth Lilim's heart tightened. She immediately suspected that the Galactic Empire was responsible for the massacre. If that were the case, the situation was even more dangerous, as the Empire had penetrated the planet Dathomir. Moreover, the occupants of the shuttle were openly declaring their presence by unleashing their force powers so freely. Darth Lilim hurriedly ran in the direction of the shuttle. As she considered returning to her Viking fighter to catch up, she saw the Lambda-class shuttle begin to land. She followed immediately. Just halfway through her run, she suddenly saw dark clouds loomed ominously in the sky, accompanied by the deafening roar of thunder and the blinding flash of lightning. Darth Lilim was taken aback. Such a violent weather phenomenon was being forcibly created by someone using the Force. Powerful bolts of lightning continued to strike, and terrifying tornadoes began to form. For a moment, the sky and earth seemed to change color, and the sun and moon lost all their light. It was an utterly horrifying scene. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck a Lambda-class shuttle with a resounding crack. Thick smoke billowed from the shuttle as its spira led downwards. Could such a powerful entity be hidden on the planet Dathomir? Darth Lilim was horrified. She climbed a tree with remarkable agility, stealthily approaching while doing her best to conceal her presence. Fortunately, her master, Darth Malthael, a Sith Lord from the lineage of Darth Tenebris and Darth Plagueis, had taught her the pinnacle of concealment techniques. Darth Malthael was so adept at hiding his power that even when conversing face-to-face with Master Yoda, the Jedi Master would not realize he was a Sith Lord. Thus, Darth Lilim was naturally skilled at hiding her aura. However, she dared not get too close, as both the dark side force emanating from the shuttle and the entity that created the storm were far more powerful than she was. She pulled down the tactical eyepiece on her combat uniform, adjusted the focus, and observed the crash site from a distance. She saw 7 or 8 figures quickly emerging from the wreckage and moving forward. Among them, she recognized one figure in a black cloak. It was the Emperor of the Galactic Empire, Darth Sidious! Darth Sidious! He had come to the planet Dathomir. Darth Lilim was even more horrified. If the Emperor had come in person, it could only mean that there was an extremely significant conspiracy on Dathomir. She knew she had to inform her master as soon as possible. However, she didn't leave immediately. She needed to see what Darth Sidious was planning to do here. Upon closer inspection, she noticed that the two individuals accompanying Darth Sidious were both clad in black combat armor with red edges. The man on the left had undergone extensive semi-mechanical modifications, with almost half of his head being mechanical. The man on the right was bald, with mysterious runes etched on his face, and wore what appeared to be a small eyepiece rather than glasses. Behind them were 7 figures of varying heights, all shrouded in black robes. At that moment, a mass of dark clouds began to gather in the sky, growing denser by the second. Finally, a powerful bolt of lightning struck from the clouds with a thunderous crash. In the aftermath of the lightning, an old woman in a red robe appeared on the spot. Chapter 1889, Intrigue and Deception. Are you Gethzerion? Darth Sidious asked coldly, his face dark and foreboding as he looked at the old witch clad in a flamboyant red robe. He had planned to come early to test the waters. The original appointment with Darth Malthael was set for a week later, but Sidious arrived on the 3rd day. Given that Darth Malthael would have to traverse nearly the entire galaxy to reach the planet Dathomir, it was impossible for him to arrive before Sidious. Upon arrival, they were immediately struck by an immensely powerful lightning storm, souring everyone's mood. Ha! What brings the Emperor of the Galactic Empire to my humble abode? Gethzerion's voice was ugly, sinister, and hoarse, sending shivers down the spines of those who heard it. Weaker minds might even go mad from the sound alone. Ah, you know me, Darth Sidious said with a sinister smile. Is it so strange that the Emperor of the Galactic Empire knows you? A twisted smile appeared on Gethzerion's wrinkled face. So, Your Majesty, what brings you to this remote place? Someone wants you dead, Darth Sidious said bluntly. The Angel of Death, the leader of the Dawn Planet, is also an evil Sith Lord. Coming from an evil Sith Lord, those words lack conviction. J. Gethzerion laughed eerily. When he arrives, kill him. Then, you will become the leader of my dark advisory group and enjoy endless glory and wealth. Darth Sidious declared, making various promises without hesitation. You and I will rule this galaxy together, using our power and wisdom to make this rule eternal. We will explore the secret of immortality, find the essence of the Force, and then live forever. The offer was almost impossible to refuse, and no one could offer more. Carol had told Darth Malthael that it would be impossible to impress Gethzerion unless Darth Sidious gave half of his power directly to her. However, she didn't know Darth Sidious, who made such an offer without hesitation. Because at this moment, Darth Sidious had already felt the terrifying dark side power of the Queen of the Night, the ugly old witch before him. The weather changed, lightning flashed, and a bolt of lightning had directly struck down the Lambda-class shuttle, which had very complete protection capabilities. Darth Sidious knew he could not achieve such strength. In other words, at least on this point, Darth Malthael had not lied to him. Gethzerion was truly a more powerful being than them. For such a being, it was natural to spare no effort to win her over and let her be used by him. Then he would change her from uncontrollable to controllable, from unknown to knowable, from darkness to light, from strangeness to familiarity. At that time, she could be killed steadily. No matter how strong you are personally, can you be stronger than a Star Destroyer's turbo-laser cannon? Can you be stronger than a doomsday missile? By then, everything would be under his control. Darth Sidious. Madness gleamed in Darth Sidious's eyes. He looked at Gethzerion and stretched out his hand. Come, join the Galactic Empire, kill the Death Angel, and then share endless power with me. Ha ha ha! Gethzerion suddenly laughed loudly, her voice worse than a crow's. Are you afraid of me? The Emperor of the Galactic Empire, Palpatine. Ha 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 ha! I just think that with your strength and knowledge, you deserve such courtesy, Darth Sidious said. Gethzerion's laughter stopped abruptly. She looked sideways at Darth Sidious and asked, You mean It was the Angel of Death who reminded you of my existence and wanted you to kill me. That's right. Then, how did he know about my existence? Gethzerion asked slowly. Darth Sidious shook his head. I don't know. If that's the case, then this Death Angel is indeed a threat. He must be eliminated, Guzerain declared as she slowly approached Darth Sidious. Ah, the Emperor of the Galactic Empire. Hey, come, let's discuss how to kill this Death Angel together. We just need to wait here and kill him when he arrives, Darth Sidious responded, matching her pace but maintaining a cautious distance. Behind him, a cyborg, a bald man, and 7 mysterious figures cloaked in black also moved, gradually encircling Guzerain. It seems you are still afraid of me. Hey! Guzerain laughed again. After killing the Death Angel, we will have a basis for trusting each other, Darth Sidious replied sinisterly. We can set up a trap to lure the Death Angel to us, then ambush him, catching him off guard. Any preparations he made will be futile. Guzerain suggested with a ferocious smile. A very good plan, Darth Sidious agreed, still circling and keeping Guzerain surrounded. But the question is, what can we use to attract the Death Angel? Of course, there is a very good bait, and that is, Guzerain's smile twisted into a more sinister expression, your corpse. In the next instant, countless bolts of lightning fell from the sky without warning, exploding above Darth Sidious and his men. Sensing the danger, Darth Sidious and his followers reacted instantly. They drew their lightsabers and concentrated their force powers to form a protective barrier. The 7 mysterious figures stood together, forming a strange formation that combined their dark side energies. Crack! 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 The lightning continued to fall but was blocked by their combined efforts. Guzerain's power was immense, and the lightning she summoned had nearly devastating force. The bald man and the cyborg coughed up blood, severely injured despite their preparations. Go! Darth Sidious roared. Behind him, the dark side of the Force condensed into an endless black hole. He raised his hand and powerful Force lightning surged forth, forming a grid in front of him. Chapter 1890, Self-Defeating. In the Hydia hyperspace channel, on the planet Taprawa, approximately 10 parsecs from Dathomir, an Archon-class aircraft carrier of the Navy of the Principality of Dawn hovered in space. Inside, Darth Malthael was meditating, preparing himself for the imminent battle on Dathomir. A prompt sounded, breaking his concentration. Darth Malthael opened his eyes, and a dark power flashed through them, sending a shudder through Carol, the witch beside him. In that brief moment, Carol felt as if she were in a world of death, sensing the withering and demise of all things. She glanced at Darth Malthael with frightened eyes, not daring to linger. As Carol learned more about Darth Malthael's power, her fear grew, making her increasingly obedient and respectful. Recently appointed as his royal advisor, Carol was tasked with providing ideas and assistance for his dark experiments. Darth Malthael had discovered that the shadow magic Carol practiced could be highly effective when combined with Sith alchemy. Carol, a distinguished witch of the Sisters of the Night, had proven her prowess by stealing the artifact Ring of the Crow and evading capture for over a century. Her longevity also hinted at her considerable knowledge of immortality. Darth Malthael walked toward the bridge, where 2 women in robes and ornate masks awaited him. One wore a white, elaborate mask with a gap on her forehead, revealing a black gem set in her skin. She had a dark complexion, a tall figure, and a calm demeanor. This was Depa Balaba, the priestess and principal of the Twilight Covenant. The other woman wore a purple mask adorned with black feathers that extended from the top and tied into her black braid, forming small black wings. She was Celeste Morn, known as Judgment, the Shadow, of the ancient Jedi Covenant and the bearer of Mir's amulet. Priestess and Judgment were the most powerful combat forces under Darth Malthael, even surpassing Darth Lilim. They bowed as he approached, and the priestess spoke, "Your Excellency, the 2 people you requested are here." Though her mask obscured her expression, her tone revealed some emotion. "I am surprised and pleased that these 2 are still alive, because this may signify hope." Despite their strength, one was still bent on avenging the Jedi Order even after falling to the dark side, and the other was an ancient Jedi. Neither was purely dark and evil. Ignoring the priestess's musings, Darth Malthael waved his hand and said, "Let's go then. Fly the fighter over, but do not alert the enemy. Judgment spoke solemnly. I don't think Darth Sidious will wait for us to arrive, and then cooperate to deal with Guts Zerlane. He might lay a trap or try to collude with Guts Zerlane. A cold smile appeared on Darth Malthael's lips. If he thinks that way, he may suffer for it. In the original plot, Guts Zerlane was an ambitious individual with little room for negotiation. Seeing the galaxy in chaos, she would undoubtedly have her own plans. If Darth Sidious dared to approach Guts Zerlane alone, her first reaction would likely be to kill the Emperor and, amidst the ensuing chaos, use her power to build her own empire. As if to confirm, Darth Malthael's thoughts were interrupted when his universal tool suddenly trembled, signaling an encrypted message. He glanced down and his expression darkened. Darth Lilim has already gone to the planet Dathomir, he exclaimed. Carol frowned. Sir, I thought that during your last discussion with Palpatine, you had indeed sent your apprentice to Dathomir to investigate. I mentioned it casually to justify my knowledge of Gutsarane. I don't want Palpatine to know about the existence of the Crow Ring yet, Darth Malthael replied coldly. Unexpectedly, she really went there. Doesn't she realize how dangerous Dathomir is? She has grown significantly and will be of great help to us this time, the priestess interjected. Yes, she did conceal her intentions well and discovered that Palpatine truly planned to contact Gutsarane in advance. Ha ha! Darth Malthael sneered. The results speak for themselves. They fought directly with Gutsarane and then fled in panic. It seems my previous judgment of him was still too conservative. Humph, this is typical behavior for a Sith Lord whom no one trusts, the priestess remarked sarcastically. Let's proceed according to the original plan, Darth Malthael commanded, waving his hand as he walked out of the bridge. Don't worry about Darth Lilim, let her face some challenges. Soon, he piloted his Red Comet Sith infiltrator, accompanied by 5 modified and enhanced Viking fighters, which were piloted by his allies. They took off from the landing platform of the Archon-class aircraft carrier, jumped into hyperspace, and headed towards the planet Dathomir. When Darth Malthael's small fighter formation exited hyperspace, the massive and mysterious figure of the planet Dathomir loomed before them. In the Force's perception, the entire planet was enveloped by its energy. Here, perhaps, was the purest Force environment. However, at this moment, 5 Empire-class star destroyers orbited the planet in low Earth orbit. Darth Malthael sneered again. It seems Palpatine is furious. No matter how dangerous the environment here is, he has sent battleships regardless. Isn't he afraid that these ships will cause too much commotion and won't be able to return? The stellar environment around Dathomir is highly complex. The Galactic Empire does not fully control this area, so pirates and rebels are rampant. If a fleet is stationed here for too long, it will inevitably be attacked. But it was clear that Darth Sidious was truly enraged after being defeated by Gutsarane. With a sarcastic smile, Darth Malthael connected to Darth Sidious's communication. He looked at the Emperor, whose emotions were well concealed on the screen, and said, "This is different from what we agreed upon, Your Majesty. Such a grand display, aside from making Gutsarane flee, it will accomplish nothing." Chapter 1891, The Chase. Although the news about Darth Lilim was brief, the sight of 5 Imperial-class star destroyers confirmed to Darth Malthael that Darth Sidious had suffered a significant setback. It was so severe that Sidious had nearly lost his composure and felt compelled to dispatch a fleet to regain his standing at all costs. Sure enough, when Darth Sidious heard the news, his expression shifted slightly, but he quickly suppressed it. He then declared sternly, "Guth Zerlane is a massive threat to all life in the galaxy. To prevent the galaxy from falling into ruin, I must first ensure she does not escape from the planet Dathomir. Then, we can join forces to eliminate her." Who is really escaping? Darth Malthael sneered inwardly. Darth Lilim's message clearly stated that the two sides were fighting, and it was the Emperor who fled in panic. However, Malthael also knew that with Sidious making such a commotion, it would be nearly impossible to kill Gutsarane. With her immense power, one of the strongest in the galaxy, she would likely foresee the danger and escape, making orbital bombardment ineffective. His Majesty the Emperor is thinking about all the people in the galaxy. This is the galaxy's good fortune, Darth Malthael flattered insincerely. So, where is Gutsarain now? Can she be tracked? She is very cunning. She fled immediately upon our arrival, Darth Sidious replied. However, during my investigations over the past few days, I discovered other witches on Dathomir. They are the Night Sisters, and they are hostile. We found several battlefields where the witches were massacred. If we want to find Gutsarain, we can start with those witches. Ah, yes. Go and ask for directions, Darth Malthael said dismissively. He doubted Sidious could still find Gutsarain, and in fact, it wasn't him who was currently provoking the old witch. Even if she escaped, she would undoubtedly cause trouble for the Galactic Empire. The Empire had vast resources, but the Principality of Dawn was relatively safe. The old witch would likely establish her own sphere of influence, kill some people to vent her anger, and rob a large amount of wealth, none of which would affect the Principality. Although Gutsarain was a significant hidden danger for Darth Malthael, his primary concern was avoiding a scenario where, during a critical battle with the Galactic Empire, a powerful and unpredictable witch would suddenly appear to cause chaos. Therefore, he decided to drag Darth Sidious into this mess. Now that Sidious was involved, and the primary target of Gutsarain's wrath, he would be the one in trouble. Darth Sidious seemed to see through Malthael's attempt to shirk responsibility. He sneered and said, Gutsarain has noticed your presence. She discovered that it was you who foresaw her resurrection, so she won't be lenient with you, Mr. Death Angel. Darth Malthael's expression changed. It was impossible for this old fox to let him off the hook. Sidious must have revealed his information to Gutsarain. The biggest flaw in his plan was that no matter how he tried to hide it, the news of Gutsarain's resurrection always traced back to him. Forcing a twisted smile, he said, That's right. For the life of the galaxy and the people of the world, I am duty-bound. This is all to save innocent lives. I will fight the evil Gutsarain to the end. Thus, the two extremely evil Sith Lords, for the sake of the galaxy's people, for love and justice, decided to join forces against the founder of the powerful Sisterhood of the Night, the Queen of the Night, Gutsarain. A moment later, Darth Malthael arrived at one of the Imperial-class Star Destroyers. The bridge was tense, filled with the presence of powerful figures from both sides. On Darth Malthael's side stood the Inquisitor, the Priestess, Carol the Witch, and two other shadowy figures cloaked in burlap. In total, there were 6 of them. On Darth Sidious's side, there was a bald man, a cyborg, and 7 mysterious individuals hidden under cloaks, making 10 in. Darth Malthael found it odd. He had expected Darth Sidious to bring Darth Vader, but instead, Sidious had brought 2 unfamiliar faces and 7 strange figures. He could only surmise that the vast Galactic Empire harbored many hidden masters unknown to him. This is my senior Inquisitor, Antinous Tremaine, Darth Sidious introduced, pointing to the cyborg. Then he gestured to the bald man, Jarek, also an Imperial Inquisitor. He did not introduce the other 7, who stood behind him, exuding dark side power without restraint. Darth Malthael, unfazed, casually introduced his own entourage. Judgment Priestess, my horseboy, Carol, the Witch of the Sisters of the Night, whom you've met before. He did not elaborate on the 2 shadowy figures under the linen cloaks. Sidious was momentarily taken aback by Malthael's casual demeanor, especially the strange term horseboy in the common language of the galaxy. Wrangler? Not bad, not bad, Sidious retorted, trying to regain his composure. Master Depabilaba, long time no see. Depabilaba, Master Windu's favorite disciple and one of the top 5 lightsaber swordsmen in the galaxy, was not easily hidden from Sidious's probing. He revealed her identity with a sense of triumph, as if uncovering a conspiracy. However, Depabilaba remained calm and saluted Sidious. Depabilaba is dead. What stands before you now is the Priestess, a soul lost between light and darkness, seeking its own path. Sidious took a deep look at Darth Malthael. The other's powerful and strange death force, along with his technologically superior fleet, had already made Sidious wary. Now seeing Depabilaba, a Jedi of such high standing, devotedly following Malthael, he realized the extent of Malthael's influence was far greater than he had imagined. Sidious glanced at the 2 cloaked figures behind Malthael. Just as he had not introduced the 7 behind him, Malthael had not introduced these 2, who seemed to be women. They stood silently, undoubtedly Malthael's trump cards. Sidious knew he had to test them, but he dared not act rashly. The two sides stood on the bridge of the Imperial-class Star Destroyer, staring each other down. Sidious longed to eliminate Malthael and remove the galaxy's greatest threat. However, seeing Malthael's entourage, he understood that he could not simply overpower them. Despite his own formidable strength, bolstered by the dark side and his triumph over the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic, Sidious knew this confrontation required caution. A complex web of power and influence across the galaxy. However, the unexpected alliance between Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious threatened to unravel his carefully laid plans. How did the Angel of Death discover the existence of the Queen of the Night? John Shen muttered, his voice tinged with frustration. And to think he would ally with Darth Sidious. This complicates everything. Mother Talzin, her face a mask of calm, stepped forward. We must remain focused, John Shen. The resurrection of Getzerion is paramount. Once she is fully awakened, her power will be unmatched. Asajj Ventress, ever the pragmatist, added, we need to accelerate our plans. If Malthael and Sidious find her before we are ready, all could be lost. John Shen nodded, his anger giving way to determination. You're right. We must ensure Getzerion's revival is completed without interruption. The power she wields will be the key to our victory. Meanwhile, on the surface of Dathomir, Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious were conducting their search. The dense forests and treacherous terrain made the task arduous, but both Sith Lords were relentless. Darth Malthael, piloting his red comet, scanned the landscape with a keen eye. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each one focused on the mission at hand. He knew that finding Getzerion was crucial, not just for his own plans, but to prevent Sidious from gaining an upper hand. Darth Sidious, in his Lambda-class shuttle, was equally determined. His TIE interceptors scoured Key area, ensuring no stone was left unturned. The Emperor's mind was a labyrinth of schemes and plots, each one designed to consolidate his power and eliminate any threats. As the two teams continued their search, the tension between them was palpable. Both Malthael and Sidious knew that their alliance was temporary, a mere convenience born out of necessity. The moment Getzerion was found, the fragile truce would shatter, and the true battle would begin. Back in the underground temple, the chanting of the Night Sisterhood witches grew louder, their voices rising in a crescendo of dark power. Getzerion's body began to glow with an eerie light, the force of the spells infusing her with life. John Shen watched intently, his eyes never leaving the floating figure of the Queen of the Night. He could feel the power radiating from her, a power that would soon be at his command. Almost there, he whispered, his voice filled with anticipation. Soon, Getzerion will rise, and with her, the galaxy will tremble. Mother Talzin and Asajj Ventress stood by his side, their expressions mirroring his resolve. They knew that the stakes were high, but they also knew that the rewards would be worth the risk. As the final incantations were uttered, Getzerion's eyes snapped open. The room was filled with a blinding light, and a wave of dark energy surged through the temple. The Queen of the Night had awakened. John Shen stepped forward, his heart pounding with excitement. Welcome back, Getzerion. The galaxy awaits your command. Getzerion looked around, her eyes blazing with power. It is time, she said, her voice echoing with authority. The galaxy will bow before us. With Getzerion's resurrection complete, John Shen knew that the balance of power had shifted. The alliance between Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious was now a mere footnote in the grand scheme of things. The true battle for the galaxy had only just begun. An enormous web of darkness loomed on the edge of the galaxy. When fully woven, it would send shockwaves throughout the entire cosmos. However, just as this sinister plan began to unfold, the Necromancer arrived with Darth Sidious in tow. In their previous encounter, Gus Zarian had managed to defeat Darth Sidious, forcing him to flee in panic. Yet Gus Zarian had not emerged unscathed and had returned here to recuperate. This turn of events infuriated John Shen, as it brought about an unnecessary disaster. John Shen had no inkling that the Raven Ring, an artifact of the Sisters of the Night, stolen over a century ago, and a witch who had defected from the Sisters of the Night around the same time, would be the ones to expose Gus Zarian. He was unaware that, in Gus Zarian's current weakened state, even resonating with the Raven Ring would not have allowed anyone to track him. Thus, Darth Malthael's concerns were entirely unfounded. Due to this bizarre series of events, Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious had joined forces to eliminate Gus Zarian. Chapter 1892, The Peak Battle. Anyone who finds themselves targeted by both Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious simultaneously is bound to be in a foul mood. After all, one is the Emperor of the Galactic Empire, and the other is the Grand Duke of the Dawn Principality. Their combined influence and power can spread throughout the entire galaxy. John Shen was no exception. He was in a very bad mood. Although he did not fear these two individuals, being targeted by them was certainly not a good thing. Mother Talzin stepped forward and said, "Darth Sidious has brought star destroyers, which are just outside our planet. We are unable to resist." John Shen glanced at her and said coldly, "Who gave you the illusion that I would be afraid of a few star destroyers? Since the Death Angel and Darth Sidious are coming, I will make sure they never leave." At this moment, Jezerine completed her ritual. She descended from the altar, and Mother Talzin and the others quickly knelt down. Although they could not understand why such a great and powerful Gutsarian would form an alliance with the humble Sith Lord who claimed to be Darth Tenebris, this did not affect their loyalty and obedience to the Queen of the Night. "Bring them here, and then kill them." Heh! Gutsarian let out a terrible laugh with her sharp and unpleasant voice. Asajj Ventress looked up at Gutsarian and said, "They have brought powerful masters. If there is a head-on conflict, we have little chance of winning. We must find a way to divide them. It is certainly impossible for Darth Sidious and the Death Angel to join forces sincerely. We need to create a gap between them. For example, we can pretend to form an alliance with one of them and then kill the other together." Shen Chaoan said calmly, "Even if they agree to form an alliance with us, can you trust the words of either of these two, the Necromancer or Darth Sidious? The final battle will still be one where we must watch out for each other." When Darth Sidious came alone to find Gutsarian before, he failed to seize the opportunity to kill him in one fell swoop. Now the arrival of the Death Angel has made the situation more complicated. In fact, they have no chance of winning. The purpose of these two seems very clear, to completely eliminate the very dangerous variable that is Gutsarian as they compete for galactic hegemony. Each of them has a powerful force, so they are wary of fighting each other, but they have no such scruples against Gutsarian. Mother Talzin said, "Don't be so troublesome, just keep waiting. If we can't be found, something will happen to the Death Angel and Darth Sidious as time goes by." This is a good idea, Shen Chaoan thought to himself, but it was still unstable. There are so many secrets on Dathomir, and the longer the delay, the higher the risk that these secrets will be exposed. So, there is nothing we can do. Now that Gutsarian has been exposed, let's expose him to the end. This can also hide other secrets. He said coldly, "The Queen of the Night, Lord Gutsarian, when have you ever hidden because you are afraid of the enemy? Humph! Since they dare to come, then let them stay." "Ha!" Gutsarian laughed. "Yes! Kill them! Kill them! Ha!" Seeing the appearance of the Queen of the Night, Mother Talzin glanced at Shen Chaoan without any trace. In the sky of Dathomir, a terrible storm was gathering. The Empire-class Star Destroyer parked on the outer edge of the planet immediately sent the abnormal weather conditions on the planet to Darth Sidious. "Your Majesty, we have detected an abnormal storm in the southern hemisphere of the planet. Although it is not large, the energy level it contains has reached level 15. The battleship commander hurriedly sent a communication. Darth Sidious said coldly, "Tell the coordinates to the Death Angels. It seems that this is Gutsarian challenging us." "Yes, Antilus Jarek. During the battle, you must always pay attention to the movements of the nephews, then act according to the plan." Darth Sidious instruct Ted once more. "Yes." The two senior judges responded immediately. They were not the most powerful individuals under Darth Sidious. The Emperor's most formidable allies were the Dark Prophet Caden, Dark Advisor Black Hole, and Darth Vader. However, Sidious did not bring them along, as he believed this mission was merely to eliminate an old witch rumored to be powerful. He saw no need to involve his top operatives, who were responsible for key Imperial affairs. However, when he actually faced Gutsarian, he regretted this decision. The old witch was so powerful that he dared not confront her directly and quickly retreated. After all, he had summoned the deceased angel for a group fight, and engaging now would result in significant losses. To blockade the planet Dathomir and prepare for orbital bombardment if necessary, Darth Sidious had recruited 5 Imperial-class Star Destroyers. At this point, he no longer cared about alerting the enemy. After receiving a communication from Darth Sidious, Darth Malthael and his party were resting outside a jungle. The witch Carl stood atop a large tree, seemingly reminiscing about her hometown, which she had left 100 years ago. Meanwhile, the trial was meditating meticulously, and the priestess was conversing quietly with 2 other women. Darth Malthael turned off the communication and said, "Gutzarian has shown up on her own initiative. It seems she wants to confront us head-on. Let's rid the galaxy of this scourge once and for all," the priestess declared. The judge, who had been meditating, nodded in agreement. On this point, she wholeheartedly agreed with the priestess. They were determined to eliminate Gutzarian. Darth Malthael added, "However, we must remain vigilant against Darth Sidious. He contacted Gutzarian in advance, which was just wishful thinking. When the time comes, it's hard to predict his actions during the battle. Although the people he leads may not seem like the top fighters, there are always some strange individuals under his command." He was thinking about the peculiar individual who had appeared during the raid in the model sector and could be remotely controlled by Darth Sidious. "His conspiracy will not succeed," the judge said resolutely. The Sith infiltrator Red Comet took off into the sky, flying rapidly towards the coordinates. More than 1,000 kilometers away from the target, the sensors began to alarm. According to the data, a violent storm lay ahead. Soon, the massive storm became visible to the naked eye. Despite its limited scale, it gathered immense power. Countless lightning strikes continuously within the storm, causing bursts of devastating flashes. Suddenly, a dazzling beam of light fell from the sky, striking the storm's center directly. Boom! A terrifying explosion erupted, with flames and dust rising to an altitude of 10,000 meters, forming a burning mushroom cloud. An Imperial-class Star Destroyer in orbit had fired a turbo-laser cannon, instantly dissipating the powerful storm. The ground transformed into a hellish landscape, with burning air, melting earth, lava, flames, and toxic gases everywhere. The jungle that once existed was obliterated, leaving only a fiery pit. Darth Malthael directed the Red Comet to fly into this inferno, lowering its altitude and fully opening the scanner for a thorough investigation. Soon, a Lambda-class shuttle joined the search, accompanied by a fleet of TIE Interceptor fighters. "Is she dead?" Darth Sidious asked coldly over the communication link. "I didn't sense her force presence, but considering the audacity of her provocation, she must have made preparations," Darth Malthael replied. At that moment, one of the TIE Interceptor pilots sent a message, "Your Majesty, we have scanned an underground space here." "Did she hide underground?" Darth Malthael mused, unsurprised. The Imperial-class Star Destroyer, despite its immense power and capability to devastate a planet's surface through orbital bombardment, had limitations. Its turbo-laser cannons, being energy weapons, were less effective against underground targets. This was a known disadvantage. The Principality of Dawn, for instance, equipped its warships with nuclear missiles specifically for such tasks. Earth-penetrating warheads were far more effective in destroying subterranean targets, though their numbers were limited compared to the virtually unlimited turbolaser fire. "It seems she's hiding underground like a mouse." "Let's go! Kill her!" Darth Sidious commanded viciously. 2 groups disembarked from their spacecraft, blasting open the ground to reveal an underground passage. As they prepared to enter, Darth Sidious and Darth Malthael exchanged glances. The narrow passageway made neither eager to go first. "Your Majesty the Death Angel, we won't be far behind. Once you engage, I will come immediately to reinforce you," Darth Sidious said, gesturing towards the passage, clearly wanting Malthael to lead. Darth Malthael smiled. "With your fleet in the sky, even if we lag behind, we wouldn't dare harm you, right?" He gestured towards the passage as well. Darth Sidious, unwilling to go first, stepped back. "This plan was your proposal, Your Majesty the Death Angel. I see you as a loyal subject of the Empire. For my sake, I'm helping you now, but don't forget, I am the Emperor." Then, as you wish, my majesty, Darth Malthael agreed unexpectedly, leading his group into the underground passage. I thought you two would argue all day over this, the priestess remarked from behind. A sneer appeared on Darth Malthael's face. Who said Gutsarian must be inside? She could easily come out and ambush us after the orbital bombardment. Whether we go in first or not, the chance of encountering her is still 50%. And, his smile turned sardonic, I feel these days are particularly unlucky for my senior brother. As he finished speaking, a sudden burst of lightning and thunder erupted outside, followed by a series of explosions. Even in the underground passage, the ground shook from the immense power. Darth Malthael laughed heartily. Ha! Gutsarian, who excels in controlling lightning and storms, seems to prefer fighting outside. Ha! After a moment, he added, All right, let's proceed slowly. Let His Majesty the Emperor entertain the old witch first. Outside, as expected, Darth Sidious was under attack by Gutsarian. Lightning fell from the sky like rain, and Darth Sidious had no time to lament his misfortune. He quickly summoned a force barrier to shield himself from the relentless lightning strikes. Antilus and the 7 Dark Jedi defended with all their might, enduring the relentless barrage of lightning. Darth Sidious, however, was not in a hurry to retaliate. He was waiting for Darth Malthael to emerge and join the battle. But despite his anticipation, Darth Malthael remained underground, taking his time and showing no signs of appearing. Growing increasingly frustrated, Darth Sidious used the Force to amplify his voice and shouted, Death Angel, come out! Yet Darth Malthael still did not emerge. Gutsarian stood on a nearby hill, arms outstretched, chanting a spell to summon the storm's power. The lightning seemed endless, creating an almost impenetrable barrier. In such a situation, launching a counterattack was nearly impossible. Facing the lightning, Darth Sidious harnessed the powerful dark side of the Force, continuously condensing its energy. The widespread nature of the lightning attack meant its power was somewhat diluted, posing a limited threat to him. Nevertheless, he wanted to ensure that his subordinates survived long enough to be of use. Thus, he allocated part of his strength to assist them in resisting the lightning. Finally, at that critical moment, Darth Malthael arrived. End of chapter. Chapter 1893, The Strongest Siege, Part 1. It was naturally impossible for Darth Malthael to leave Darth Sidious outside to fight Gutsarian alone. The result would only be that Darth Sidious would turn around and walk away, leaving Malthael to bear all the wrath of Gutsarian. Under the acceleration of the Force, Malthael's figure moved with incredible speed, appearing at the entrance of the underground passage within moments. As soon as he emerged, without saying a word, he raised his hand and unleashed a bolt of bloody lightning that had been condensed for a long time. The speed of the bloody lightning was so fast that it was almost impossible to see. This was Darth Malthael's most powerful ability. The moment the lightning struck, it seemed as if everything around him was plunged into darkness for an instant. All that could be seen was the irresistible lightning. Gutsarian raised her hand to block it, and the bloody lightning disappeared in her palm. But in the next second, a cloud of blood exploded on the back of her hand. Seeing this, Darth Malthael's pupils suddenly tightened. He had condensed almost all of his power into that lightning bolt, but it only injured Gutsarian. He glanced at the angry Darth Sidious and explained, There is a trap in the underground passage. The person I brought is injured. Soon, Judgment and the priestess also emerged from the underground passage. The priestess, who had already fallen to the dark side, was holding a blood-red lightsaber, while Judgment's lightsaber remained yellow. Over the past few years of practice, Judgment seemed to have mastered a way to condense all her dark side force into the part of Carnismur in her body, so what she displayed externally was actually the light side force and the dark side force. Although the two forces within Judgment were still clearly incompatible, Darth Malthael encouraged her to continue trying. Perhaps this was a path to mastering the unified force. The witch Carol and 2 other women who had been following him did not come out. However, there was no time to think about their situation. Darth Sidious seized the opportunity when Gutsarian was injured by Darth Malthael and rushed forward himself. His combat methods still retained many elements of Darth Plagueis' teachings, and like Darth Malthael, he was also extremely proficient in using the speed of the Force. His figure moved like a bolt of lightning, appearing almost instantly in front of Gutsarian. As he moved quickly, he used the Force to lift countless rocks from the surrounding ground. These rocks began to rotate at high speed, containing the power of lightning. As Darth Sidious approached Gutsarian, countless rocks charged with lightning struck from all directions like cannonballs. At the same time, Darth Sidious's black hole-like force enveloped Gutsarian, making her unable to move at all. He raised his hands, and a power grid that almost filled the entire space was activated. The power of this grid was incredibly strong, even tinged with a hint of purple. He was the Emperor of the Galactic Empire. Darth Sidious, he had always claimed to be the strongest in the galaxy. His move was so powerful that even Darth Malthael turned his attention. In previous battles with Gutsarian, it was never Sidious who suffered, but the men he brought with him. The reason he had retreated before was that after seeing the power of the old witch, he didn't want to fight alone. Darth Malthael looked at the two senior inquisitors that Sidious had brought, whom he was not familiar with, as well as the strange group of 7. These people seemed to have no intention of taking action at all. Instead, they stared at him, as if they were specially prepared to guard against him. Judging from the power displayed by Darth Sidious, he indeed did not need the assistance of these next-level masters. Darth Malthael didn't hesitate at all. He, Judgment, and the Priestess. Darth Malthael rushed towards Gethsemane with incredible speed, his figure seemingly turning into a wisp of smoke as he surpassed the judges and closed in on his target. Boom, boom, boom. Countless rocks, charged with lightning and controlled by Darth Sidious, hurtled towards Gethsemane. Simultaneously, his immensely powerful force lightning struck, penetrating Gethserane's body along with Darth Malthael's attack. However, in the next instant, there was a massive explosion. Darth Malthael was suddenly knocked away by an invisible force, his gauntlet barely blocking the attack, as he was sent flying more than 10 meters back. Gethserane's hair was disheveled, and her red robe was scorched by the lightning, but she remained standing, facing Darth Sidious's overwhelming force. The invisible force that had knocked Darth Malthael away was revealed to be a massive fist made of countless rubble. The judge and the priestess immediately attacked with their lightsabers, slashing from the left and right. The priestess, usually noble and serious, unleashed her 7th sword technique, Wapad, with extreme violence. The judge's swordsmanship was more measured, primarily using the 3rd sword technique, Soresu, and the 4th, Ataru, pressing forward step by step and blocking every inch of Gethserane's space. Although the judge carried Mor's amulet, neither she nor Karnaz Mal relied on it as their true power. They depended on their proficient fighting skills and powerful force abilities. Gethserane kept retreating, dodging the attacks of the two lightsabers. Like Darth Sidious, she preferred not to use lightsabers but had her own countermeasures. With a wave of her hand, the surrounding trees came to life, and countless thick vines entangled the judge and the priestess. At the same time, a terrible storm gathered in the sky, covering hundreds of meters around them. The violent hurricane made it impossible to stand still, and deadly lightning was hidden within the strong wind. The judge and the priestess had to retreat, fighting the omnipresent trees and vines with all their strength while trying to withstand the terrible storm. Darth Sidious laughed maniacally. He opened his hands, and a suffocating force gathered around him, temporarily matching Gethserane's power. At that moment, the giant trees and vines surrounding the judge and the priestess suddenly withered, losing their vitality and being blown away by the strong wind. Darth Malthael appeared behind the old witch, the force of death that devoured all life sweeping in. Chapter 1894, The Strongest Siege, Part 2. Gutserane's face twisted with ferocity. She extended her other hand, pointing menacingly at Darth Malthael. Chanting a spell in a harsh, grating voice, she amplified the power of the lightning storm raging above. The sky erupted with more than 10 tornadoes, wreaking havoc across the land. Darth Malthael immediately felt the immense pressure of the lightning storm. Countless bolts of lightning struck down, but they were all blocked. However, despite Little Klesh's gauntlet shielding him from almost all damage, The storm's powerful force made it difficult for him to move. His expression grew fierce as he summoned a sandstorm formed by the force of death, which surged behind him and slammed into Gutsarain. In that sandstorm, countless hands seemed to stretch out, and faces twisted in agony screamed silently. They reached for Gutsarain, attempting to seize her, bite her soul, and drag her into the world of death. But the old witch remained unafraid. With her strength, she withstood both Darth Sidious's force Black Hole and Darth Malthael's force Sandstorm. Simultaneously, continuous lightning strikes kept the judge and the priestess on the defensive. The two senior inquisitors and the group of 7 in the distance could no longer bear the onslaught and retreated into the underground passage to escape. Meanwhile, the witch Carol, overwhelmed by Gutsarain's devastating power, knelt on the ground, muttering incessantly. The other 2 women were nowhere to be seen. The battle between the 4 continued. Gutsarain used her powerful lightning storm to fend off Darth Sidious and Darth Malthael, while simultaneously facing off against the judge and the priestess. Despite being outnumbered, she held her ground. However, she soon realized something was wrong. Her life force began to drain away. She turned abruptly to see Darth Malthael's ferocious expression. It was his death force that was siphoning her life force. Even her lightning storm couldn't halt the erosion of the force of death. Though slow, it was relentless. Countless roots extended from Gutsarain's feet, piercing deeply into the ground to absorb the Earth's force. This was equivalent to directly tapping into the force of the planet Dathomir. Normally, directly absorbing the force from nature is like ingesting poison. It overwhelms the individual with the planet's vast consciousness. But Gutsarain had broken through this limitation. She continuously absorbed the Earth's vitality, causing the surrounding creatures and even the rocks to turn gray and fragile. No matter how much Darth Malthael's death force absorbed, it was futile. However, this left Gutsarain immobile. The judge and the priestess seized the opportunity to attack. They charged with their lightsabers, one from the left and one from the right. Gutsarain had no choice but to summon a lightsaber, its blood-red blade igniting as she stood her ground and fought them off. In such a high-stakes confrontation between top masters, every moment counted. Darth Sidious found an opening. He laughed loudly, and the black hole-like force enveloped him once more. The extremely powerful force lightning in his hand wrapped around Gutsarain like a giant hand. His control over the force was so precise that the countless lightning bolts avoided the judge and the priestess while ensnaring Gutsarain. Their lightsabers struck with cunning precision. Gutsarain let out an ear-piercing whistle that seemed to reach the very soul. The movements of the judge and the priestess were stagnant. At the same time, the bloody lightsaber in her hand suddenly swung to the side, and Darth Sidious's power grid was attracted to the other side by the lightsaber. She did not stop with her other hand, and a ball of highly compressed lightning began to condense in her palm. She intended to kill either the judge or the priestess instantly to relieve the pressure on her. She understood that if this siege continued, she would surely die. However, just as the lightning in Gusera, Innie's hand was ready to strike, she suddenly felt the pressure on her body from another direction loosen instantly. Darth Malthael had suddenly withdrawn all the force of death, and the yellow sand in the sky, along with countless resentful spirits, were instantly torn to pieces by the lightning storm. Countless bolts of lightning struck him without any hindrance, but they were all blocked by Little Clash's gauntlet. Darth Malthael remained unscathed. At this moment, there was a gap in Gutsarain's storm. The power of the storm failed to stop Darth Malthael's advance. He was also holding a blood-red lightsaber. With the sword in his right hand and blood-red lightning once again condensed in his left hand, he rushed towards Gutsarain, preparing for a lethal strike. A trace of panic finally appeared on Gutsarain's ferocious expression. She quickly turned around and shot the lightning ball in her hand towards Darth Malthael. He, having entrusted all his defense to Little Clash's gauntlet, made no defensive moves at all. The bloody lightsaber in his right hand stabbed out fiercely, accompanied by the bloody lightning in his left hand. With a loud bang, the lightsaber in Darth Malthael's hand shattered. He was knocked backwards by Gutsarain's lightning. The power of this lightning was so immense that even little Klesh's gauntlet could not completely resist it. However, his blood-colored lightning had already struck Gusarain's shoulder. The next second, Darth Sidious's power grid and the lightsabers of the judge and the priestess finally broke through the final obstacle and fell upon Gusarain. The extremely powerful electric grid burned almost every inch of her skin, and the two lightsabers cut the old witch into 3 pieces. One sword slashed at her waist, and the other at her chest and abdomen. She lost her legs and left hand in an instant. Ah! Gusarain screamed like never before. The out-of-control lightning storm suddenly became more terrifying. At the same time, countless roots suddenly grew from her body, barely connecting the severed parts. She then crawled on all fours in a completely inhuman posture, moving with incredible speed. Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious were both affected by the terrifying scream, but Darth Sidious responded faster. He covered his head with one hand and suddenly threw his lightsaber with the other. The lightsaber stabbed into Gusarain's right leg accurately. She screamed again, discarded her right leg, and then burrowed into the ground like liquid, disappearing quickly. Chapter 1895, The Interruption of the Plan. Seeing Gutsarian's body transform into countless roots and burrow into the ground, right under the noses of Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious, arguably the 2 strongest men in the galaxy, their expressions soured. Gutsarian's soul-shaking scream in her desperate situation left them both with lingering fears. It wasn't even a force skill. It was more of a chaotic instinct, a very primitive use of the force. It was almost like the chaotic force of nature, gathering the will of countless creatures, undead, or even the planet itself, and bursting out through her scream. No one could handle it, not even Gutsarian herself. The scream had knocked back the 2 strongest men, Darth Malthael and Darth Sidious, and likely shook her own mind as well. However, considering that even when Gutsarian was using the force of death to absorb her life force, she could grow roots on her body and absorb the planet's force to replenish herself, Darth Malthael wasn't entirely confident that she had acted irrationally. The Night Sisterhood witch's cultivation is very close to nature, so perhaps Gutsarian had hidden some life-saving means. After all, the location of this battle was chosen by Gutsarian herself. If she had hidden something like a magic circle here, Darth Malthael wouldn't be surprised at all. Look at her condition. Even if she isn't dead, she's no different from a cripple, Darth Malthael said, stepping forward to examine the leg that had been severed by Darth Sidious's lightsaber. There was no blood flowing from the leg. It had turned into something resembling dry wood. Darth Malthael gently swiped it with the Force, and it immediately crumbled apart. But she's not dead yet, and you've seen her power. If we hadn't joined forces, no one would be her match, Darth Sidious said grimly. She must die. This battle had shown him the power of the Queen of the Night, but it also made him realize that the gap between them wasn't insurmountable. He felt that with continued practice and growth, he could reach the same level as Gutsarian, even if it took him hundreds of years. However, that didn't mean Darth Sidious thought he could win without Darth Malthael's help this time. At their level of power, lower-level masters could no longer pose a threat. For instance, if Darth Malthael hadn't come and he had brought Darth Vader, Black Hole, and Kadon instead, it would have been difficult to defeat Gutsarian. In the battle just now, if Darth Malthael hadn't used the Force of Death to restrain her from behind, no matter how powerful his Black Hole Force was, it would have been suppressed by Gutsarian. A battle between powerful Force-sensitive beings is not just about lightsaber combat. It's about using their Force powers to control the surrounding area. It's like two people fighting in a river. Whoever controls the water flow around the other person will win. Among strong men of Darth Sidious's level, the competition for control of the domain is all-encompassing. He raises his hand to use the Black Hole Force, Gutsarian unleashes a lightning storm, and Darth Malthael conjures a death sandstorm. These are all manifestations of their respective force powers fighting for control. In other words, without Darth Malthael's assistance, the two masked women, Dippa and Bilaba, would have had no chance of getting close to Gutsarian. She can grow roots from her body, her severed limbs can turn into wood, and she can give life to those trees. It seems like this guy is already a tree demon or something like that, Darth Malthale said with a frown. No matter what she is, find her for me. We must locate her whereabouts. If not, I would rather plow the planet Dathomir to the ground. Darth Sidious roared. Then I suggest you search the depths of the underground passage we just explored. I noticed many forks leading deeper underground, Darth Malthale replied calmly. Darth Sidious let out a distorted laugh. Ha! Your Majesty the Angel of Death, since you have already been to the underground passage, it is only natural that you should continue to explore it, right? Darth Malthale sneered internally, suspecting that Sidious would order an Imperial-class Star Destroyer to obliterate the place as soon as he ventured further. He did not voice his thoughts, but said seriously, My people were injured by traps down there, and after this fierce battle, I lack the strength to continue. Haven't your senior judges ever participated in a war? Let them search. With their greatest enemy having escaped with serious injuries, the two Sith Lords resumed their mutual scheming. The underground passage had been a point of contention for a long time, but neither had managed to resolve it. In the underground passage, those who had not participated in the battle emerged one by one. On Darth Malthale's side were two cloaked women and the witch Carol, while on Darth Sidious's side were 7 strange dark Jedi Knights, Antilles and Jarek, a senior judge. Witch Carol's body trembled as she looked around, fearing Gethzarian might reappear. She was also horrified that the two beings before her had defeated the Queen of the Night. The two cloaked women stood quietly beside the priestess without saying much. Darth Sidious snorted coldly, glaring at his men. Trash! Did I bring you here to crawl into a dog hole and watch a show? The men quickly knelt down, pleading, Your Majesty, please forgive us. Before they could finish, Darth Sidious's expression turned ferocious. He raised his hand, and the lightsaber in Antilles' hand flew to him. The blood-red lightsaber ignited instantly, sweeping across with terrifying power, decapitating the 7 dark Jedi in one swift motion. Seeing this, Darth Malthale's lips curled slightly. He quickly said, Oh, Your Majesty, please calm down. Darth Sidious looked at the two women standing next to the priestess and sneered, It seems the underground trap has indeed seriously injured your men. I'm afraid they won't recover for 10 days or more, Darth Malthale replied with a slight smile. Ha! Since Gethzarian has escaped and our people have suffered serious casualties, let's just blow this place up, Darth Sidious declared. At that moment, a message came through Darth Malthale's universal tool. He glanced at it and said, It seems my apprentice has discovered something. Why don't we go and have a look together? Darth Sidious ignored him, turning towards his shuttle. I give you half an hour. In half an hour, the orbital bombing will begin, he announced, making it clear that no matter what was found, he intended to destroy the place. Darth Sidious had realized he was being used as a pawn by Darth Malthale. Although Gethzarian posed a significant threat to his galactic empire, there were many ways to eliminate such a threat without joining forces with the Death Angel for a dangerous confrontation. He was certain that Darth Malthale was withholding crucial information. On one hand, he wondered why Malthale was so determined to eliminate Gethzarian, and on the other, why he seemed to understand so much about her. Gethzarian was well understood, both in terms of his personality and combat methods. The latter was easier to explain, indicating that the Witch of the Sisters of the Night beside him knew more than she let on. She had informed Darth Malthale, but he had kept it to himself. Reflecting on this, Darth Sidious cast a cold glance at Carol. The witch suddenly felt a chill run down her spine and shuddered involuntarily. This time, Darth Sidious planned to obliterate the place completely, regardless of what Darth Malthale intended. The Lambda-class shuttle ascended into the sky, carrying Darth Sidious and 2 senior Inquisitors, soon disappearing from view, leaving only the 7 headless corpses lying on the ground. The Emperor is too perceptive. He immediately realized that those 7 fools were deceived by our illusion, a voice as sweet as a silver bell remarked. 2 women, their faces hidden by cloaks, lifted their hoods, revealing smooth blonde hair. One had her hair tied into a ponytail on the left with a red ribbon, and the other on the right with a blue ribbon. They were none other than Luna Dream and Luna Fantasy. I've told you before, Don't engage in such meaningless temptations, and never underestimate any of your enemies, the priestess scolded sternly. And this time, you actually wanted to test Darth Sidious. Luna Dream quickly lowered her head and admitted her mistake. I'm sorry, Master. And we will reflect on it. The Dream Sisters remained quiet, thanks to their former master. Otherwise, even if Darth Malthael were present, they might have had a falling out. No, I ordered them to do this, Darth Malthael said. Darth Sidious was still very cautious and didn't give us any opportunities. He even fought alone, always watching his back. Ha ha ha, an old fox is still an old fox after all. Let's go. Time is limited. He said he would start bombing in half an hour, but I bet he will wait for us for 15 minutes at most. Both he and Darth Sidious had worked hard to outmaneuver each other. Darth Malthael enlisted the Dream Sisters, planning to use their illusion abilities to confuse the enemy and gain an advantage. To enhance the element of surprise, he didn't even bring the soul-stealing sword, instead hiding on the red comet, ready to summon the sword if necessary. Despite facing a formidable opponent like Gus Zarian, Darth Sidious executed his plans flawlessly. If Darth Malthael didn't act, neither would he. If Darth Malthael left a few people behind, so would he. It was a game of strategy, each trying to outwit the other. Eventually, their plans clashed, leading to a bitter end. Don't you care about what Darth Lilim found? The priestess asked. At least you could destroy what she discovered. As she spoke, the Dream Sisters moved a few steps away from her, still wary after their severe punishment on the planet Onderon. It's not necessary. If that thing needed to be destroyed, Darth Lilim would have done it. If she didn't, we don't need to waste our time, Darth Malthael replied. At that moment, they had already boarded the Red Comet, taking off and flying towards the coordinates sent by Darth Lilim. Sure enough, not long after the Red Comet departed, an enormous mushroom cloud rose from the battlefield, covering a vast area. Darth Malthael checked the time and cursed under his breath. It's only been 12 minutes. That old guy must have ordered the bombing as soon as he got back to the spacecraft. Without any delay, the Red Comet sped towards its destination. The ship picked up Darth Lilim and flew towards outer space at full speed. Upon reaching the outer orbit of the planet Dathomir, they saw that the Archon-class aircraft carrier they were on had also arrived and was now confronting 3 Imperial-class star destroyers. A large number of swarm drones had been launched from the aircraft carrier, ready for combat. The sheer size of the Archon-class aircraft carrier, with its massive 3,175-meter-long hull, created an overwhelming sense of oppression, even when facing the 3 Imperial-class star destroyers. Its length alone was almost equivalent to 2 Imperial-class ships combined. The other 2 Imperial-class star destroyers had now entered synchronous orbit and were conducting intensive orbital bombardment of the area they had just left on Dathomir. The Red Comet landed on the platform of the Archon-class aircraft carrier, and Darth Malthael began exchanging experiences with Darth Lilim. Upon learning that her master had fought against such a formidable enemy, Darth Lilim's face showed a mix of excitement and frustration. She longed to fight alongside her master, but seemed to miss the opportunity every time. After hearing about Gethzarian's peculiar situation, Darth Lilim pondered for a moment and then said, "Master, I believe I have discovered the secret of Gethzarian." End of chapter. Chapter 1896, The Secret of Gethzarian's Resurrection. Darth Malthael frowned. What did you discover? I found a tree. Darth Lilim's eyes flashed with excitement. A tree growing underground, a blood-red tree. She licked her lips, clearly intrigued by the tree. A tree? Darth Malthael mused, recalling his earlier comparison of Gethzarian to a dryad. Darth Lilim nodded. In an underground palace, there's a huge tree with countless fruit-like sacs growing on it, but inside each sac is a corpse. Where did the bodies come from? Darth Malthael asked. Some of the corpses are witches dressed differently from the Night Sisters. They look like savages living in the woods, but they use the disgusting light side of the Force. Ha ha! Those light witches are just hanging on the tree like fruit. Ha ha! Darth Lilim laughed. Carol interjected. Those witches who use light magic are likely the descendants of Elia. They are bound by the Book of Laws and cannot come into contact with shadow magic. In the legend of our Night Sisters, the Queen of the Night has always wanted to unify all witch tribes, but it seems she just wants to kill all the witches of light. Having betrayed the Sisters of the Night over a century ago, Carol had long since become indifferent to the conflict between the Dark Night Sisters and the Light Elia race on Dathomir. Do these trees and corpses have something to do with Gutzarion? Darth Malthael asked, frowning. Darth Lilim licked her lips. I wanted to get a closer look, but I heard an old woman on an altar in front of the big tree say that this tree provides magic power to Gutzarion. The old woman didn't seem very dangerous. I initially wanted to kill her, but the tree suddenly started extracting magic power crazily. After a while, many corpses, reduced to skin and bones, were spat out from the sacks on the tree. She sighed with regret. The old woman ran away quickly. I heard her say that Gutzarion was seriously injured and needed a lot of magic power to recover. Once the magic power extraction started, the area around the big tree became unsafe. So I left too. The old woman you mentioned should be Daka. She is the eldest witch of the Night Sisters, proficient in the Song of Resurrection, which can make dead bodies stand up again as an undead army. She chased me when I escaped from Dathomir, Carol said. Darth Malthael remembered that Daka was the old witch who resurrected countless zombies in the original plot to fight against the invading Federation of Independent Systems robot army. It was a rare scene of undead creatures versus mechanical legions. He smirked sarcastically. Those tattered zombies controlled by the Force like puppets, are they still qualified to be called an undead army? Ha ha ha. Daka's meager means are naturally impossible to compare with yours, Master, Cheryl quickly added. Ah, by the way, when I came here, I saw several destroyed villages. There were traces of battles, but no corpses. They carried all the bodies underground to use them as Gutzarion's batteries, Darth Lilim said. It seems that all those witches of light have been killed by Gutzarion. Ha! As a Sith Lord from the dark side, Darth Lilim naturally had no sympathy for the Elia race who used the light side of the Force. Darth Malthael smiled coldly. That makes sense. Gutzarion has always sought immortality. She found ways to extend her life and lived for hundreds of years, but immortality is not eternal life, so she still inevitably faces death. Faced with this equalizer, she made a final struggle, leaving herself the last glimmer of life and extending her existence. He stood up and looked at the red planet outside the porthole. I was still surprised before. How could a character like Gus Zerlin be resurrected without warning? It seems that this is one of Darth Tenebrous' arrangements. That tree is undoubtedly the tool he used to resurrect Gus Zerlin and maintain her unparalleled power. Maybe that tree will be blown up. Judgment also came to Dar, the Malthael, as he looked at the planet Dathomir. The Imperial-class Star Destroyers were launching orbital bombardments on the planet, and the flames of countless explosions were clearly visible even from space. On the ground, these explosions would likely create a terrifying sight stretching tens of thousands of meters. If Darth Tenebrous wasn't stupid, he would have foreseen the orbital bombardment and taken precautions, Darth Malthael said. It doesn't matter. Gus Zerlane's primary hatred must be towards Darth Sidious. No matter how much trouble she and Darth Tenebrous cause, they won't be able to affect our planet, Dawn. He turned back to Darth Lilim and said, After you return, you and Severance Tan need to strengthen the monitoring of the planet Dathomir. Additionally, I will ask Tang Xiao to find a way to infiltrate his gang forces into the Darrow Star Sector and keep an eye on the movements in the darkness. As you command, Master, Darth Lilim immediately knelt on one knee. Okay, you can go. Darth Malthael waved his hand dismissively. A blush appeared on Darth Lilim's face. Master, you have just experienced a battle, and you are already very tired, so why not? I said you can leave, Darth Malthael said coldly. Yes. Darth Lilim didn't dare to show any disobedience. She quickly saluted, stood up, and walked out. After the Viking fighter she piloted took off, the Archon-class aircraft carrier that Darth Malthael was on recovered all the swarm drones, turned the ship around, left the planet's gravity well, and initiated a hyperspace jump. After several hours of bombing the planet Dathomir, Darth Sidious felt that it was sufficient. Not wanting to waste more time, he left 5 Imperial-class Star Destroyers to continue monitoring the planet. He He then took a Lambda-class shuttle and returned to the center of the Empire. In the hyperspace channel, Darth Malthael looked at Luna Dream and Luna Phantom, who seemed extremely well-behaved, and asked with some confusion, "Where have you been in the past few years after the destruction of the Jedi Order?" Luna Dream and Luna Phantom were found by the priestess while they were shopping in a colony on an inconspicuous planet. He also felt that the illusion abilities of the Dream Sisters were very useful. In this situation, where he and Darth Sidious were pretending to join forces but actually undermining each other, their abilities could be very beneficial. So, he invited the two sisters to join him and return to the Principality of Dawn. "We have been in a space station of the Galactic Empire. It is a relay supply station, and fleets occasionally come to rest and recuperate, so the supplies are very abundant," Luna Dream said calmly. "Ha! Everyone there is living in our fantasy world. Whatever I want them to see, they see it," Luna Phantom said proudly. "If I don't like someone, I make them use the toilet as a restaurant, and then they go in and feast." Ha! Luna Dream, clearly embarrassed by her sister's antics, quickly interrupted. "There were not many pranks like that. We created a false environment in the supply station through our illusions and lived there. The people inside always thought we were the supreme commanders of the space station, and the fleets that came to resupply were also confused by our illusions." Darth Malthael frowned slightly. Even with this simple narrative, he could sense how powerful and potentially dangerous their abilities were. The people lived in the terrifying illusion created by the Dream Sisters. While it might have involved some minor pranks, the situation was far from harmless. Every sense was blinded by illusions, leaving them completely controlled by others, a truly frightening experience. This also indicated that the power of the Dream Sisters was growing. It's one thing to confuse someone with an illusion for a short period, something even Darth Malthael could do using the Force. But to create an entire false world through illusions and deceive everyone who entered it was a feat that left him azed. "Since you were living so well there, why did you come to a remote Imperial colony? If you just wanted to buy things, you could have asked the Imperial officers to serve you," Darth Malthael inquired. "Ah, it's because the Galactic Empire discovered discrepancies in the accounts," Luna Huan exclaimed, waving her hands in frustration. "We can use illusions to deceive everyone who enters the space station, and even the warships docked there are within our influence. But illusions are not real, and we can't solve the issue of supplies and accounts with them." Luna Meng elaborated. "We've been asking the space station's financial staff to create false accounts to cover up the abnormal material flow, but we couldn't hide it forever." Luna Huan shook her head. "Humph. I just asked them to send the maintenance data for the Executor-class Superstar Destroyer. I also asked them to prepare the maintenance materials for it. The problem is, ours is a Level 4 supply station. It's impossible for an Executor-class Superstar Destroyer to dock at a Level 4 supply station," Luna Meng sighed. Despite knowing the problem clearly, she always followed her sister's lead, even if it meant making mistakes. Darth Malthael's eyes twitched. Good grief. You two had quite the adventure. Maintenance data for the Executor-class Superstar Destroyer? That's practically half a blueprint. The materials required for maintaining such a Superstar Destroyer are enormous. No wonder the Galactic Empire got suspicious. Luna Huan continued. As a result, the Galactic Empire sent a surveillance fleet led by a bald man in white. "It's the Grand Inquisitor," Luna Meng added. Although the Grand Inquisitor couldn't see through our illusion, he sensed something was wrong. He captured a few officers from the supply depot and prepared to take them back. When my sister and I realized we couldn't hide it anymore, we used the illusion to wound the bald man and escaped, Luna Huan explained. Darth Malthael was surprised. "How much did you embezzle to attract the Grand Inquisitor?" "It's not that much." Luna Huan looked guilty, her voice softening. "Near the planet Mingban," Luna Meng said. "After the Galactic Empire began attacking the planet Salukami, they removed the military base on Mingban. We hid the materials we applied for from the rear in the abandoned base there." "So how much is there?" Darth Malthael was curious. "Want to see it? We have no use for most of those things. If you want them, take them," Luna Meng said nonchalantly. The Archon-class aircraft carrier, a 125-meter-long giant ship, was too conspicuous to move around freely. The Galactic Empire's hyperspace outposts constantly monitored such movements. So, Darth Malthel and his party allowed the Archon-class aircraft carrier to return to the Principality of Dawn on its own, while they flew separately. Towards the planet Mingban, the Red Comet Sith infiltrator glided silently through space. Mingban was once a fierce battlefield between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The Galactic Republic suffered a tragic defeat here, and the planet still bears the scars of that conflict. Wreckage from numerous crashed battleships, primarily Jaeger-class battlecruisers, litters the landscape, 7 in total. Although the Galactic Empire established a department to recover and dismantle these wrecks, the sheer number of them proved overwhelming. The war saw countless battles across numerous planets, and as the Galactic Republic transitioned into the Galactic Empire, much information was lost. This made it difficult to track the locations of fallen warships, let alone recover them. Consequently, the planet still retains the brutal remnants of that era. The Dream Sisters piloted Darth Malthel towards an abandoned Galactic Empire military base. As they approached, Darth Malthel, with his Force-enhanced vision, spotted 2 massive ships on the ground from a distance. A black line appeared on his forehead as he exclaimed, You actually embezzled 2 Imperial-class ships." Chapter 1897, A Fly Turns into a Tiger. The spacecraft landed next to 2 Empire-class Star Destroyers, revealing a dilapidated-looking military base nestled between them. Despite the base's size, it appeared minuscule compared to the imposing 1,600-meter-long Star Destroyers, much like a kitten standing next to a tiger. Upon landing, it became evident that more than 20 small and medium-sized spacecraft of various types were parked alongside the 2 Empire-class Star Destroyers. These included Gozanti-class transport ships, Oro-class cargo ships, and even 4 Corellian gunships. Essentially, this was a small fleet. As they walked, Luna Dream explained, "The 2 Star Destroyers have been combating illegal smuggling at the edge of Hutt space. They've engaged in numerous fierce battles with rampant pirates, destroying at least 3 pirate bases. Oh, and in the first half of the year, they received the Imperial Medal of the 3rd class from the Imperial Navy." She looked up at the towering Empire-class Star Destroyer, its top barely visible from the ground. Imagine standing under a 300-meter-high building. Even entering from the middle of the Empire level would feel like a long-distance run. To support the fight against pirates, the Galactic Empire Navy Department didn't skimp on logistical supplies. During a battle last year, one of the Empire-class Star Destroyers was severely damaged by a large number of ghost fighters purchased by pirates from the black market. In response, 4 Corellian gunships were dispatched to provide additional air defense, Luna Dream continued. Darth Malthel rubbed his forehead and mused, "Is this the Star Wars version of free money?" The battle reports were vivid and tragic, but in reality, these spaceships were parked here brand new, untouched, except by the elements. "Ah! Those people from the Imperial Navy are so deceitful. They claimed our logistics fleet was attacked, but all they equipped us with were powerfully armed transport ships like the Gozanti class," Luna Dream said happily. "Perhaps it's not that those Imperial officials are easy to deceive, but simply because such actions can also make them a lot of money," the priestess said lightly. "Maybe 4 Corellian gunships were sent to you, but the Imperial Navy's report might state there were 8, with the cost of the additional 4 ships lining their pockets." "What a pathetic empire. They spent a whole fleet's worth of money and achieved nothing," Judgment remarked. Reflecting on the Galactic Republic's decline and the rise of the Galactic Empire since being awakened by Darth Malthel. But unlike the Galactic Republic, the Galactic Empire transfers this money to the exploited planets in the middle and outer rings. They don't even hide it. They engage in predatory development and then concentrate vast amounts of money and resources in the inner circle, the priestess added. "It's because the Empire is so foolish that we have a chance to get a Star Destroyer." Luna Dream couldn't understand the priestess and the judge's sentiments. The group walked towards the military base and opened its gate, revealing scattered armors and equipment of cloned soldiers. After several years, The equipment, covered in mud and rendered unusable, had seen better days. Finally, Lunameng led them to the base's warehouse. Unlike the rest of the base, this warehouse appeared relatively new and seemed to be frequently accessed. With a precise motion, Lunameng raised her hand, and under the fine control of the Force, she entered the password instantly. The massive iron doors began to slide open slowly on both sides. Inside, countless gun racks and armor stands were meticulously arranged, stretching so far that the end was not visible. Looking up, there were more than a dozen armored units, including ATT walkers, ATST bipedal walkers, AV-7 self-propelled artillery, and TX-130 Sabre hover tanks. Thousands of Westwind G hover motorcycles were also stored here. Darth Malthael felt a headache coming on. So you also embezzled an Heat army unit from the Galactic Empire? Of course, Luna Huan replied excitedly. The Marine Corps equipped with one Imperial-class Star Destroyer is a Legion with 9,700 people. 2 ships mean 19,400 people, plus the losses from constant combat, so there are a total of 30,000 people here with equipment. And what about these Marines? Did you kill them all? Darth Malthael asked calmly. No. We let them live on that space station, and from time to time, they fight against pirates that don't exist at all, Lunameng explained. So, what are you planning to do with all this equipment? Darth Malthael inquired. If you think these things can take down the Galactic Empire, you're mistaken. But if you say they're insignificant, there are indeed quite a few, enough to suppress most of the planets in the Outer Rim. Luna Huan tilted her head. We don't really know what to do with this equipment. Initially, we just wanted to see if the Galactic Empire would send us some interesting things. So, my sister sent them a letter claiming this place was attacked by pirates. A few days later, the Imperial military sent us 2 Aquitans-class light cruisers. Lunameng sighed. Then the lie couldn't stop. The Imperial military kept asking us to report on the combat process of these 2 light cruisers. We created an illusion of a space battle for them. A few officers reviewed it, and their professionalism was impressive. The combat reports they wrote were better than Master Jing's novels. Then, the Imperial military sent reinforcements. The Empire has never been stingy with weapons and equipment. They gave us whatever we asked for. Eventually, we ended up with all this weaponry. Initially, we just wanted some good food to improve our meals, but that didn't happen, Luna Huan said, a bit unhappy. My sister and I ate military rations for a full year before the fantasy world grew enough to confuse the officers and let them use military expenses to buy delicious food. Darth Malthael shook his head, realizing this was a classic case of small greed turning into huge greed, from a fly to a tiger. End of chapter. Chapter 1898, Parting Ways. Moreover, are the Dream Sisters the Jedi Knights who have had the most comfortable life after Order 66? After Order 66, other Jedi Knights were either killed on the spot or wandered around the galaxy incognito, constantly hunted by Palpatine's dark followers. Even if they escaped Order 66 initially, many were killed later. Even the remnants of the Jedi Order that moved out of Coruscant before Order 66 are still struggling to survive. In stark contrast, these 2 sisters managed to occupy a Galactic Empire supply depot and embezzled 2 legions and a fleet. Despite their claims that the food might not be great, they certainly had no shortage of essentials and entertainment. Compare this to Master Windu, who disappeared after the destruction of the Second System Army. He is probably surviving on grassroots now. In this light, the Dream Sisters are truly the beacon of the Jedi in a sense. Even now, they still bear the marks of the Jedi Order and don't seem to plan on removing them. We usually use those 2 Aquitans-class light cruisers to guard the space station. When the Grand Inquisitor came to investigate, we had those 2 battleships stop his pursuit. Otherwise, there would be more battleships here, Luna Huan said, still somewhat entertained by the memory. Luna Dream turned to Darth Malthael and said, If you can use these equipment and battleships, take them all. Now that the Grand Inquisitor has seen through our illusion, we can no longer maintain these supplies after leaving the depot. If left here, they will become useless in a short time. This is something you worked hard to embezzle. Are you just giving it to me as a gift? Darth Malthael asked with a smile. Luna Meng tilted her head and thought for a moment before replying. We don't need it anyway. Besides, it wasn't that hard to embezzle. But it was fun, Luna Huan added. Darth Malthel looked at the endless array of weapons in front of him. Since they were obtained 3 or 4 years ago, they included not only the first-generation clone armor from the Clone Wars, but also the second-generation armor and stormtrooper armors from after the clone army was reorganized into stormtroopers following the establishment of the Galactic Empire. Well, I think if this batch of equipment is handed over to Saratan Moss of the Military Intelligence Department, he will be very happy. These standard Imperial equipment can be used for many things, and the identification codes of these pieces of equipment are all legitimate Imperial military forces, Darth Malthel said, tapping on a set of stormtrooper armor. When the time comes, this batch of equipment can be used to support rebel armies everywhere. Darth Malthel felt secretly pleased at the thought of rebels using these items to disguise themselves as Imperial troops and cause destruction. There are some things that, no matter how powerful his intelligence department is, they cannot accomplish. The power of the people is unlimited, and their numbers are also unlimited. If 30,000 sets of marine equipment are given to rebel armies, who knows how many ways those resourceful and intelligent people of the Empire will find to make good use of them. As for bringing these battleships back for research, the Principality of Dawn currently does not have this need. The battleships they built themselves are superior to the Empire-class Star Destroyers. Judging from the performance in the later stages of the Clone Wars, it can be said that it was only because their size was much smaller than that of the Imperial class that they were suppressed on the battlefield. But now that there is no war with the Galactic Empire, the Dawn Principality is not in a hurry to update its equipment. On the one hand, it is necessary to invest more resources in absorbing the new technology and knowledge they have acquired. Planet Rendili and the rebuilding of the economic system of the Dawn Principality were crucial tasks. On one hand, it was essential to conceal their weaknesses from the Galactic Empire and reduce Palpatine's wariness. In fact, the technical analysis of warships capable of countering Imperial-class Star Destroyers had already been completed. They were merely waiting for the war to break out again. Well, these matters are all yours, Luna Meng said indifferently, seemingly unaware that she had just given away hundreds of millions of Empire credits with a single sentence. So what's next? Are you coming back? Darth Malthel asked. You could return to the Twilight Covenant and continue learning from your former master. I have fallen to the dark side and am no longer qualified to teach them, the priestess replied, shaking her head. The current Principality of Dawn is not fun at all, Luna Huan added, shaking her head as well. We plan to go to the planet Harankar next, Luna Meng explained. That's why this equipment is useless to us. Darth Malthel frowned. Planet Harankar is filled with dreams and illusions. If others went there, it would be fine, but for you the impact would be 1,000 times more serious. If you're not careful, you could be lost there forever. This is the path we must take, Luna Dream said resolutely. We can't defeat that sister, she pointed at Judgment, nor can we defeat Darth Vader. Not to mention Darth Sidious and Gutsarian, Luna Dream added. So, we must become more powerful, Luna Huan declared, clenching her fists. Darth Malthel nodded, recognizing that the two sisters had their own ambitions and plans. Your illusion skills have indeed grown significantly. On the planet of Dathomir, only Darth Sidious can see through them. Not enough, Luna Meng shook her head. Not enough, Luna Huan echoed. Darth Malthel did not press further. In that case, we will meet again in the future. If you need us, you can find us on the planet Harankar, Luna Meng said, placing her hands on her lower abdomen and giving a polite lady's salute. The two sisters found a shuttle and departed. Darth Malthel watched the shadows in the sky with complicated emotions. It was difficult to define his relationship with the Dream Sisters. Were they loyal? They had left the Dawn planet and joined the Jedi Order at a young age, growing up there. With their strength, they were no longer affected by the sleep cues from their childhood. Even if there were feelings involved, their deeper connection was likely with the Jedi Order. Were they subordinates? The sisters did not seem to regard him as their master. Although they were obedient, it seemed their obedience was contingent on finding it enjoyable. So, were they allies? It didn't seem like that either, as there was no significant conflict of interest between them. Inform Saraton Moors to come and receive this batch of equipment. He will know what to do. Darth Malthael instructed the priestess. We don't need to waste any more time here. Okay, the priestess nodded. Returning to the Sith infiltrator, the priestess noticed that Darth Malthael had entered new coordinates. She asked, I thought we were going back to the Twilight Covenant on the Dare 2 satellite? No, I think I should visit an old friend. Her soul seems to have undergone some changes recently. A cruel smile appeared on Darth Malthael's lips. Set course for Terrace Planet. Chapter 1899, Death Star Terrace, a Dead Planet. 5,300 years ago, at the peak of the Mandalorian Crusaders' rule, Terrace was the most prosperous planet under their jurisdiction. With a population nearing 100 billion, it was known as the Outer Rim Coruscant. Terrace served as the core transportation hub of the Hydian Way, with countless spaceships coming and going, bringing immense business opportunities and wealth. The planet developed rapidly as a result. Back then, Terrace was completely urbanized. Except for about 30% of the ocean area, the entire landmass was built into a colossal, planet-wide city. During its urban development, a highly complex underground pipe network system was constructed, creating an underground maze. Over hundreds of years, a new city was built atop the first, which became known as the Undercity. 4,600 years ago, a third city was constructed on the planet's surface, leading to the second city being called the Middle City. As Terrace continued to prosper, the Mandalorian Crusaders allied with the Sith Empire to fight the Galactic Republic. Consequently, the lower and middle cities of Terrace became places of filth and evil. The planet's elite and noble families built a new city above all others, known as the Upper City. Thus, Terrace evolved into a 5-layer structure: sewer, lower city, middle city, first upper city, and second upper city. During this era, the population of Terrace peaked at nearly 100 billion. However, the planet's lack of agricultural production due to limited surface water began to show. Only 30% of the oceans were used for kelp farms, which couldn't meet the needs of the massive population. As a militarized civilization, the Mandalorian Crusaders lacked the economic strength to support Terrace like the Galactic Republic supported superplanets such as Coruscant and Rendali. Consequently, Terrace developed a deformed ecosystem that emphasized both industry and agriculture. Excessive farming, mining, and industrialization caused severe pollution, contaminating the kelp farms and making many people sick. The infected were expelled to the lower city, and when it could no longer accommodate them, the middle city became their place of exile. 4,156 years ago, the opening of the Corellian trade route led to the decline of the Hydian Way. More caravans and spaceships preferred the faster Corellian route, causing Terrace's trade volume to plummet and its economy to suffer a severe recession. This recession lasted over 200 years. During this time, the Mandalorian Crusaders struggled against the Galactic Republic's counterattacks, and Terrace was eventually occupied by the Republic. However, the Republic had no interest in this polluted planet and abandoned it after a short occupation. Finally, more than 3,900 years ago, the Sith Empire occupied Terrace. By then, the planet's population had dwindled to between 6 billion and 10 billion. The Sith Empire, preoccupied with other matters, had little time to govern Terrace effectively. At its peak, Terrace had a population of nearly 100 billion, but now it was a shadow of its former self. The city had 5 floors. At its peak, you could imagine how prosperous and glorious the planet was. However, with the planet's decline, the population plummeted from 100 billion to less than 1/10 of that number. Consequently, there were not enough resources, financial means, or manpower to maintain such a vast city. In the dark corners of the city, there was no energy, no food, and no clean water. All that could be seen were countless steel jungles, shrouded in darkness and dilapidation, stretching endlessly, the ruins of a once great civilization. Among the remaining 6 billion people, only a very small number of the ultra-wealthy lived at the top. They continued to lead lives of luxury, sustained by the immense wealth they had accumulated in the past. Almost all other normal citizens resided on the second floor, working in various relatively decent jobs to keep the upper city functioning. As for the middle city, lower city, and even the sewers further down, no one knew what they were like inside anymore, and no one cared. But these people had no idea that for the planet Terrace, the real disaster was just beginning. At that time, the war between the Sith Empire and the Galactic Republic was still raging. The Sith Empire, defeated on the front lines, refused to accept their loss. They made a desperate decision to carry out orbital bombardment of the planet Terrace. Powerful lasers rained down from the sky, vaporizing oceans and igniting cities. The noble families and elegant ladies living in the uppermost city screamed, wailed, and fled in all directions. In their desperation, they poured into the lower-level cities. But against the powerful firepower of the space battleships, even the first-level city could not withstand the assault. As flames and explosions penetrated the upper city and began to spread to the lower levels, countless cracks appeared in the solid dome, collapsing everywhere. These once pampered rich and nobles finally found themselves in places they never thought they would set foot in, the middle and lower cities of Terrace. What greeted them was darkness and terror beyond their imagination. Those who lived, or rather were abandoned in the middle and lower cities, or even in the sewers, were often people who had contracted infectious diseases due to food contamination, the poor and desperate, or the most vicious criminals. These people struggled to survive in the abandoned city, drinking polluted water, eating deformed rats, and walking through dirty, smelly, dilapidated streets. They looked up at the bright upper city with sick and greedy eyes. When they saw the fat, tender-skinned nobles from the upper city running down in panic, the scarlet eyes in the darkness revealed a ferocious light. From initial disappearances, losses, kidnappings, and assassinations, to blatant attacks and large-scale assaults, the middle and lower cities of Terrace became a bloody slaughterhouse. But was this the extent of the disaster? No, it was far from over. In the deepest part of Terrace's underground, a place so filthy and evil that even the most depraved would never set foot there, the sewers, an extremely malevolent force awakened. One of the original 7 Sith Lords, the immensely powerful Karneth Moor, had landed here in the stasis chamber where he was exiled. As he slept, his Sith artifact, Moor's amulet, lost its restraints, exuding its evil and dark power without limit. The massacres in the middle and lower cities, the flowing blood, the shrill screams, the painful wails, the roaring souls, all of this fueled the dark side of the Force. Moor's amulet awakened under the nourishment of this darkness. Under its influence, a large number of dead corpses and lost souls rose again. These corpses began to transform into terrifying monsters, Rak ghouls. These ghouls were extremely powerful and agile, and they're tough. The skin of these creatures cannot even be penetrated by lower power blasters. What's even more frightening is that the Rak ghouls, who should retain some consciousness from their previous lives, have become uncontrollable monsters. This is because Karneth Moor, the owner of the Moor amulet, was asleep at the time, leaving no one to control these beasts. They now act purely on instinct, driven only by bloodlust and a desire to kill. These rat ghouls began to emerge from the sewers, attacking everyone in sight, beggars, hooligans, nobles, or the wealthy. It didn't matter who they were. If they appeared before the rat ghouls, they were slaughtered. The carnage spread from the sewers to the lower and middle cities, and no one could resist these monsters. During the 200 years of Terrace's decline, the population plummeted from 100 billion to just over 6 billion. Countless corpses were abandoned in the sewers, and many people died silently in the dark underground. Now, these corpses have transformed into terrifying ghouls. Any relatively intact body killed by a rat ghoul would soon become a new rat ghoul, perpetuating the cycle of massacre. The nobles in the upper city began to organize their own armed forces to resist the dark forces' onslaught in the middle and lower cities. Both sides fought fiercely, but the sudden appearance of the rat ghouls left them at a loss. The endless army of ghouls crowded the underground streets, and even a united front couldn't resist them. People retreated towards the upper city, but the rat ghouls continued to spread. Eventually, these monsters reached the upper city. The The survivors had no choice but to blow up all the entrances and exits of the city, fleeing to the ruins left by the orbital bombardment. Several years had passed since the Sith Empire's orbital bombardment. The Sith Empire had been defeated, and the Galactic Republic had no interest in this chaotic planet, abandoning it once again. Taris became a lonely, unmanaged planet, even unappealing to pirates and mercenaries. The survivors rebuilt several cities among the ruins, living difficult lives. Nobles and gangsters no longer mattered. Those who survived such a disaster were tough elites. The population had dropped from 100 billion at its peak to less than 500 million. This process was nothing short of miserable and terrifying. The once 5-story city on Taris is now collectively referred to as an underground city. Survivors constantly reinforce the passages to the underground levels to prevent any rak ghouls from breaking out. Although life on the surface is difficult, it is finally free from war and massacre, allowing the survivors to live in peace. The dungeon has become a taboo topic on the planet. The number of rak ghouls in the Taris dungeon is impossible to count. 100 million? 200 million? 1 billion? 2 billion? No one knows. These rak ghouls wander the dungeons, sustained by the endless dark side power emanating from Mor's amulet. This place is one of the most terrifying in the entire galaxy. Some people, driven by greed, ventured into the underground city to retrieve the wealth abandoned during the escape. None of them ever returned. It wasn't until later that Celeste Morn, a member of the Jedi Covenant, received orders from Lucien Dre to track down the source of this dark power. Traces of Karn's Moor led me deep into the dungeon, where I eventually found Mu's amulet in the deepest part of the sewer. "I've thought about it many times," Judgment said, standing in front of the ship's porthole, gazing at the gray planet. "At that time, I fought my way to the deepest part of such a place. Perhaps it wasn't just my determination, but Mor's amulet calling to me." She continued, her voice calm yet resolute. "Billions of rak ghouls. In the face of such slaughter, I used the power of the amulet to transform and eliminate more than 8 million people on the planet Jabur. The actions of the Dalao Crusaders seemed childish in comparison." She raised her hand, gently stroking the golden, insect-like mirror amulet around her neck. Her tone grew firmer. "Such massacres should never happen again in the galaxy, and I will be the seal of this power." The priestess frowned and added, "The billions of rak ghouls on Taris are a constant threat. If the dungeon passage is ever breached, the entire planet could be destroyed." Darth Malthael observed the two, a hint of irony in his thoughts. Were these two like lotuses, emerging unstained from the mud? "Can you control the rak ghouls in the dungeons of Taris?" he asked. "In theory, it should be possible," Judgment replied seriously. "But these rak ghouls have been wandering here for 4,000 years since Mor's amulet was taken away. I'm not sure if they can still be controlled." "Then give it a try," Darth Malthael said calmly. "Once the war with the Galactic Empire resumes, I will unleash all the rak ghouls here upon the Empire." End of this chapter. Chapter 1900, Death. The priestess frowned and said, "If this is the case, the tragedy on Taris planet will happen again." Darth Malthael smiled coldly. "Don't worry, the Galactic Empire is far more competent than the Mandalorian Crusaders, who are all brawn and no brains. They will control the rak ghouls very well." The spaceship landed among the ruins of the upper city on Taris. The damage here was the most severe during the orbital bombardment. The city was almost entirely obliterated, leaving only countless broken walls and ruins as remnants of its former prosperity. When they arrived at one of the passages leading underground, it had been blown up, and numerous warning signs were posted to deter entry. The blood-red paint bore horrifying messages. "This leads to hell. Everyone who goes down is dead. There are countless demons underground. You won't even have any bones left." Despite the warnings, there was a man-made gap above the passage. The gap was not large and could only accommodate 2 or 3 people entering at the same time. It seemed that over 4,000 years, the horror of the rak ghouls had been forgotten by many or dismissed by some adventurers who had heard the legends of the Taris dungeon. There were still those willing to take the risk. After all, Taris was once a prosperous planet, and the wealth accumulated here was astronomical. Even during its 200-year decline, the planet's top nobles and wealthy families retained significant fortunes. When the Sith Empire began its orbital bombardment, many of these people fled to the underground city, carrying astonishing amounts of wealth with them. However, as the upper city's residents poured into the lower city, they encountered gangsters, beggars, and criminals from the lower class, and then the Rak ghouls. During this process, most people perished, leaving their wealth in the vast underground city of Terrace. Therefore, it was not incorrect to say that there were treasures in the Terrace dungeon. But with billions of Rak ghouls wandering the dungeon, very few could retrieve these treasures, though it was not impossible. Darth Malthael and his companions descended the underground passage, finding only ruins below. Some cracks in the dome allowed sunlight to filter through, providing some light. But as they continued downward, it grew darker and darker. Rak ghouls disliked sunlight and rarely ventured upward, but in the lower levels, in the deep darkness, countless chaotic and bloodthirsty eyes watched them. When Judgment stepped into the dungeon, something seemed to awaken in response to Moore's amulet. "They are coming," Judgment said in a deep voice. She held her yellow lightsaber, using its plasma blade to illuminate the path and ready for combat. It was clear that this place cast a significant psychological shadow over her. Even with Moore's amulet in her hand, she was the most nervous among the three. Countless black figures stirred from their slumber in the endless shadows. They had huddled in the darkness, in those dark buildings, reducing their activity to conserve energy. Now, with the arrival of Moore's amulet, they awakened from the shadows. One by one, the Rak ghouls stood up and slowly moved towards them. In front of Darth Malthael and his companions, inside a tall building with more than 100 floors, countless Rak ghouls crawled out of the broken windows riddled with holes. Their movements were slow and confused, as Moore's talisman brought them the nourishment of the dark side. The priestess. Her once serene face was now twisted with confusion and rage, her eyes glowing a menacing red. The aura of death around her was palpable, almost suffocating. Darth Malthael continued, his voice cold and commanding. "You are no longer the Jedi you once were. You are now a harbinger of death, a force to be reckoned with. Embrace your new identity, Grim Reaper." Adi Gallia, or rather the Grim Reaper, seemed to struggle with the words, her mind a battlefield of conflicting memories and emotions. I remember. The Jedi. E-battles. But now I am something else," she muttered, her voice a mix of sorrow and acceptance. The priestess and Judgment watched in silence, their expressions a mix of awe and apprehension. The transformation before them was both fascinating and terrifying. The priestess, clutching Moore's amulet tightly, could feel the immense power radiating from the Grim Reaper. Darth Malthael stepped closer, his eyes never leaving the Grim Reapers. "You have been given a second chance, a new purpose. Together, we will bring balance to the Force, in our own way. The galaxy will tremble before us." The Grim Reaper's eyes flickered with a newfound determination. She nodded slowly, accepting her fate. "Yes, I will follow you, Darth Malthael. I will be your Grim Reaper." With a satisfied smile, Darth Malthael turned to the priestess and Judgment. "Our mission is far from over. We have much to do, and many enemies to vanquish. Let us move forward, united in our purpose." As they made their way out of the abandoned sewage treatment plant, the Grim Reaper followed closely behind, her presence a constant reminder of the power and danger that now accompanied them. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. Judgment. All I could see was that she was in rags, her once slim body now covered with dense scars. Her clothes, nearly reduced to tatters, were stained with dark red blood. Whether it was her own or that of Lark's corpses, I couldn't tell. Damn it. A deep scar ran diagonally from the left side of her face to the right side of her chin, exposing bone and giving her a ferocious appearance. This sight made the priestess take a step back in shock. The priestess, familiar with Adi Gallia, remembered her as having the dark skin unique to the Thalothian people, healthy and energetic, with a pair of big eyes full of wisdom and agility. As a humanoid race, she may not have been beautiful by human standards, but she was approachable and made people feel comfortable. However, the Adi Gallia standing before her now could only be described as a monster immersed in killing. The murderous aura emanating from her made the priestess feel a pang of panic. Adigalia murmured to herself, I'm not willing. I haven't been able to see the ending. I can't die. Darth Malthael said, You really cannot die, because the Galactic Republic has been destroyed. Palpatine reorganized the Republic into the Galactic Empire, and he became the Emperor of the Empire. No. Adigalia seemed unable to accept this result. She took 2 steps back, held her head, and roared loudly. The power of the dark side surged like a tsunami, an extremely powerful force that instilled fear. After the roar, Adigalia calmed down. She murmured, I can't die! I am an Avenger! I am the Avenger who came back from hell! Her voice became firmer and smoother, and she seemed to have gradually regained her long-lost consciousness. Has the Galactic Republic really been destroyed? Adigalia finally said the first logical sentence. The priestess didn't hesitate. She took off her mask, revealed her face, then walked forward and hugged Adigalia's shoulders, saying word by word, That's right, the Galactic Republic has been destroyed by Palpatine himself. The Jedi Order has also been destroyed. Depa, Master Balaba. Adigalia looked at her old friend in front of her. She reached out and touched the hideous wound on Depa Balaba's forehead. I'm still here. The Galactic Republic is not destroyed. The Jedi Order is not destroyed, and I will definitely take revenge. I have transcended death. In order to one day be able to kill Palpatine with my own hands, I want revenge. Let's go. Let's get out of here first. Depa Balaba supported Adigalia and led her down the mountain of corpses step by step. The group once again passed through countless rock ghouls unscathed, returned to the surface, and entered the Red Sea, Omet's Sith infiltrators. Adigalia finally regained her consciousness in front of her old friend Depa Balaba. Back on the spaceship, after eating something, she finally began to talk about her situation over the past few years. If Darth Malthael's resurrection technique is used on people who are sensitive to the Force, there will be a drawback. The Force-sensitive people he resurrected were, in a sense, deceiving the Force. Because once life is gone, the Force naturally dissipates, but the force of the people he resurrected still exists, though it continues to fade. And this resurrected person will actually move toward death step by step. Their bodies begin to decay, their minds begin to blur, their strength gradually weakens, and eventually they become meaningless walking corpses. Several Jedi Masters who had been resurrected by Darth Malthael had met this end, and Adigalia was no exception. But the difference was that Adigalia was very determined, and she was originally a Jedi Master with very powerful perception. After being resurrected by Darth Malthael, she clearly felt that her body was gradually decaying and her reactions were gradually slowing. After learning about Palpatine's conspiracy to subvert the Galactic Republic, she believed that all disasters originated from him. Strong hatred filled her heart, fueling an intense desire to survive. She was not willing to give in, not willing to die and become a walking zombie. She refused to accept that the Galactic Republic, which had lasted for 25,000 years, could be destroyed overnight by the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. She wished she could do more. She hoped to save the Galactic Republic and pierce her lightsaber into the rotten heart of Darth Sidious with her own hands. Therefore, she could not die. She could not end up like Master Green Betty, gradually turning into a senseless walking zombie. Desperate for a solution, she sought out Darth Malthael. He provided her with a direction, the dungeon on the planet Terrace. Only death can transcend death. End of chapter. Chapter 1901, New Tarot Cards. Adigalia stood up, walked to Darth Malthael, placed one hand on her chest and bowed deeply. Then she knelt on one knee and declared in a deep voice, I will serve you as my master, Darth Malthael. I will be your sharp blade to pierce the Galactic Empire and destroy all obstacles for you. Your greatest enemy, Darth Sidious, will be killed by my own hands. Darth Malthael glanced at her. Adigalia's oath was conditional, but it was also the least restrictive. As long as the enemy was the Galactic Empire and Darth Sidious, she was willing to do anything, even if it meant wielding a butcher's knife to massacre civilians without hesitation. The other tarot cards under him had different dynamics. The priestess, Depa Balaba, was more of a close ally. She often had her own style of conduct and moral principles, and would not follow orders blindly. Judgment, Celeste Moen, was homeless. When she was trying to eliminate the corruption of Kane's Moor, the two had some close contact. This person, who was once trained as a shadow, stood beside him with some resignation. However, when faced with orders she did not agree with, she would resist and try to persuade Darth Malthael. The hermit, Obi-Wan Kenobi, had not yet faced his own heart. He seemed lost about the changes in the galaxy, so he discarded the mask given to him by Darth Malthael and chose to run away, a sign of his inner confusion. But Darth Malthael believed that he would definitely come back. The members of the tarot cards were all people who had experienced significant changes and wanted to abandon their former selves. The mask was a symbol of their new life. More than anyone else, Adi Gallia's transformation excited Darth Malthael. Adi Gallia was resurrected by him and would have been enslaved by him originally. There was a connection between the two at the soul level. A few months ago, he had already felt that Adi Gallia's state began to gradually change. In the dungeon of the planet Terrace, she fought against billions of Rak ghouls and killed countless numbers of them. Moreover, tens of billions of people had died on this planet. The power of death and resentful spirits on the planet was stronger than any other planet in the galaxy. Darth Malthael hoped that Adi Gallia could be baptized in such an environment, undergo transformation in the constant killing, and eventually become one with death. Now it looked like Adi Gallia had done it. She had become death. As a dead person, she would naturally not lose consciousness and become a walking corpse due to death. On the contrary, death had become her nourishment. Nourished by death, her power had become far more powerful than before. Darth Malthael stretched out his hand, and the powerful and dense power of death condensed in his palm. He placed his hand directly on Adi Gallia's head. "You are death. You are the end. You are reborn in the midst of decay. You are ushering in the starting point in the midst of destruction. Adi Gallia is dead and has nothing to do with you anymore. The obsession in your heart guides you to move forward. Accept your new name, the God of Death." Darth Malthael proclaimed, and the powerful force of death exploded instantly, spreading all over Adi Gallia's body in an instant. Adi Gallia's body visibly shriveled up, her muscles disintegrated, and her bones broke. In just a few seconds, she turned into a mummy and fell to the ground. But the transformation was not over yet. Countless black mist began to spread from her body. "Your body of the living is your last imprisonment. Go and refill your body with the resentment of the dead. Go to the planet Felucia. The Galactic Empire is at war there. Go and kill!" Ha! Darth Malthael laughed loudly. Adi Gallia, whose whole body was shrouded in black mist, stood up again. "As you wish, my master." The collapse of her body made her voice sound like it came from the depths of Juyo, like an evil ghost from beneath. Such a scene filled the priestess Depa Balaba with deep fear. She could clearly sense that the power of Adi Gallia, no, the god of death, had reached a terrifying level. In the past, although they were both members of the Supreme Council of the Jedi Order, Adi Gallia was different from herself. Adi was not a combat-oriented Jedi Master. She excelled in telepathy. If they had faced each other head-on, Depa Balaba would have been confident in defeating her quickly. But now, the priestess felt she might no longer be a match for death. And the implication of what Darth Malthael had just said was that the current state of death was not yet complete. So how terrifying would she be once she completed this final killing ritual? The priestess took a deep look at Darth Malthael, feeling a sense of awe. Perhaps only such a being could have the power to fight against Darth Sidious. Although powerful dark believers continued to appear around Darth Sidious, people like Black Hole and Kaden, super strong individuals who had never been heard of before, but suddenly appeared. Darth Malthael was not inferior at all. Carol, the witch who had witnessed such a terrifying scene, had already collapsed on the ground, frightened by this extremely dark and evil display. She was almost in a state of complete breakdown. They went to a city on the planet Terrace, found a spaceship, and handed it to the god of death, allowing her to travel to the planet Felucia on her own. After that, Darth Malthael and his party finally embarked on their way back. Although it was just a few of them when they arrived, upon their return, both the priestess and the judge could clearly feel that the darkness lingering around Darth Malthael had become more intense. "Planet Terrace is still useful," Darth Malthael suddenly said, seemingly out of nowhere. The priestess looked at him, puzzled. Although the pollution caused by orbital bombing on this planet has been completely eliminated over the past 4,000 years, it is still just a ruin. Even the rebuilt city relies solely on agriculture. For these indigenous people, mere survival is already a luxury. Darth Malthael replied, "This planet has a good foundation. After all, it was once the Coruscant of the Outer Ring. As long as the Rakghouls in the underground city can be cleared away, such a vast underground space can easily solve the issue of mass immigration." "What do you mean?" Judgment asked, surprised. "Yes, that's exactly what I mean." Darth Malthael glanced at Judgment and said, "Go back and start planning." End of chapter. Chapter 1902, The Dilemma of Planet Losar, Part 1. Lothal is a planet located in a very remote area of the outer ring of the Milky Way. Situated on the northeastern boundary of the galaxy, it is even more isolated than the dark planet, Mon Calamari, which is already on the edge. Typically, traveling from the core of the Milky Way to Lothal requires at least a month in the hyperspace channel and dozens of jumps. Despite its remoteness, Lothal boasts a very suitable climate. The planet is free from extreme terrains and climates, featuring vast plains. Due to its isolation, few people venture to this distant place, making it a paradise for its indigenous inhabitants. The population of Lothal has always ranged between 200 million and 300 million, with fewer than 100 cities and settlements. The residents primarily engage in farming and lead peaceful lives. Even after the Clone Wars broke out, Lothal, though loyal to the Galactic Republic, declared neutrality and refrained from participating in the conflict. Because the planet is not a major transportation hub and holds little strategic value, even the Federation of Independent Systems, after taking control of the Dark Planet, did not send their robot army to Lothal. However, neutrality came with its own set of challenges. Due to its geographical location, Lothal has been cut off from the Galactic Republic since the war's outbreak, leading to its current predicament. The dilemma began 3 years ago. At that time, the Galactic Empire failed to conquer the Principality of Dawn, and the Principality, unable to continue the war, negotiated a separate peace, abandoning the Confederation of Independent Systems. The Principality of Dawn withdrew from the war, taking with it several races under its domain, such as the Solarians, Grands, Doggers, and Sailstans. In an unexpected move, the Grand Duke of the Dawn Principality issued an order that seemed illogical. He agreed to allow the Jiwen people under the Principality to immigrate to Lothal. When the government of Lothal received this order, they were utterly confused. After all, isn't Lothal part of the Galactic Republic? Although the Republic had been reorganized into the Galactic Empire and Lothal had not actively surrendered, its allegiance was clear. Why was the Grand Duke of Dawn, a former separatist, issuing orders to them? Following the fall of the Galactic Republic, Lothal had its own agenda. The planet had always maintained a high degree of independence, both economically and culturally, making it somewhat disconnected from the galaxy's mainstream. When major changes occurred in the Galactic Republic, Lothal's government aimed for autonomy. They wanted to transform into an autonomous dominion, indifferent to the galaxy's conflicts, focusing solely on their agricultural pursuits. But the unexpected immigration order from Grand Duke Tang Xiao shattered these plans. Less than 2 months after the order was issued, the first immigrant spacecraft arrived over Lothal. These ships had traversed Hutt space, passed through areas controlled by the Federation of Independent Systems, and finally reached Lothal via the Dark Planet. Count Dooku did not hinder this immigration, recognizing its long-term benefits for the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The industrial strength of the Jiwen people was undeniable, and their successful settlement would significantly bolster the Confederacy's power. Upon completing the immigration to the planet Losar, the warships and industrial products produced there will undoubtedly be sold to the nearby Confederation of Independent Systems. Isn't this far more lucrative than the food and vegetables that the natives of Losar typically sell? The government of Losar immediately issued a formal protest to the Principality of Dawn. However, their concerns were met with indifference. The envoys they sent didn't even get to meet Tang Xiao in person and were promptly dismissed. Seeking arbitration from the Galactic Empire proved equally fruitless. The Empire, now established for over 6 months, showed little interest. "Who are you?" they seemed to say. "You were insignificant before, and now you come to us for help because you're being bullied?" As one of the core races of the Dawn Principality, the immigration of the Given people was continuously reported to the top brass of the Galactic Empire. However, after analysis, the Imperial military concluded that the immigration of the Given people was actually beneficial for the Empire. The Given people had been guarding the Yago-Dur system, making it a formidable challenge. Previously, the Galactic Republic had sent Admiral Gideon Tarkin to storm the Yago-Dur system, but he failed. This fiasco was one of the triggers for the eventual collapse of the Galactic Republic. So now, if the Given people, with their strong industrial capabilities and computing power, wanted to immigrate and leave, the Galactic Empire was more than happy to support it. From the perspective of the Imperial military, the Given people's attempt to immigrate to the planet Losar was like opening the door to the Principality of Dawn. They were eager for the Given people to leave and had little concern for the autonomy-seeking planet of Losar. What the Galactic Empire didn't understand was that for the Dawn Principality, the Given people moving away was not a significant loss. At worst, they could just build a Stargate and return at any time. A 3-body environment like the Yago-Dur system is inherently a double-edged sword. The violent astronomical changes that led to the defeat of the Galactic Republic also caused the Yago-Dur planet to reorganize its industry and increase production capacity. It dropped by more than half and took a long time to recover. After all, the entire planet was shot out like a pinball, so it would be surprising if the results were good. Moreover, handing over the planet Losar to the great Given people was akin to giving away something that wasn't theirs, gaining greater loyalty from the Given people in the process. It was a completely costless transaction. Of course, the Dawn Principality's official rhetoric was very high-sounding. They claimed that the planet Losar had not been fully developed and lacked an industrial system of its own. As a result, the residents on the planet were below the poverty line and could barely meet their needs. Furthermore, it wasn't that Losar lacked resources. The indigenous people simply lacked the ability to convert these resources into wealth. The most important point was that Losar was vast, with fewer than 300 million indigenous people, leaving ample space to accommodate the nearly Given people. The Given people were portrayed as pitiable, living in the Trisolaran galaxy and facing the threat of extermination at any time. What was wrong with setting aside an area on the large planet of Losar for the Given people? Where was the spirit of free thought and tolerance? End of chapter. Chapter 1903, The Dilemma of Planet Losar, Part 2. Despite their best efforts, the inhabitants of planet Losar could not prevent the Given people from landing. Within a few months, the Givens arrived in a massive whale-class passenger spacecraft. Upon landing, they began their immigration process with remarkable efficiency. Modular houses sprang up rapidly, and the engineering spacecraft's professional tools cleared the dense jungles with astonishing speed. A powerful disintegration beam could transform a vast jungle into fertile soil within a day. In just 4 months, the Givens had constructed 3 temporary cities on planet Losar, each housing precisely 360,569 people. The Givens' precision extended even to single digits. After landing, they spent substantial amounts of real money to purchase food and supplies from the indigenous people of Losar. Known for their industrial prowess, the Givens were one of the most powerful industrial entities in the Principality of Dawn, and were not short of funds. The authorities of planet Losar understood that the Given strategy was to dominate the local economy by leveraging their vast financial resources. However, they were powerless to stop it. Under the same economic system, the wealth creation and production capacities of an industrial civilization far outstripped those of an agricultural one. Both sides operated within the economic framework of the Galactic Empire, and the resources and wealth the Givens could generate were incomparable to the locals' agricultural output. Soon, many locals began trading with the Givens, exchanging their crops for advanced industrial products. The Givens welcomed this arrangement, as it allowed them to save space on their ships for more people and modular houses instead of food supplies. Their ultimate goal was to transform planet Losar into their second home. The Givens' determination was fueled by a recent catastrophe on their home planet, Yago-Dur. An astronomical phenomenon had flung the planet at high speed due to the gravitational forces of nearby stars, causing widespread devastation. The Givens had endured this terrifying experience silently, but now they had a new home, personally approved by Tang Xiao, the Grand Duke of the Dawn Principality. To the Givens, the Galactic Republic and its leader, Palpatine, were irrelevant. Their mathematical models had long predicted that remaining with the Republic would bring no benefits. As loyal members of the Dawn Principality, they now fought against the Galactic Republic and the Imperial fleet. Under the Principality's banner, they enjoyed a good quality of life, with ample food, drink, and clothing. Their models suggested that following the Principality of Dawn was a path full of potential. With Tang Xiao's approval, the Givens began a large-scale immigration of women and children from their home planet. Within the first year, the Given population on planet Losar had swelled to 14 million, including the elderly, weak, sick, and disabled. The Givens were not environmental. The text cuts off here, but the narrative would likely continue to describe the Givens, environmental policies, and further developments on planet Losar. After the G1 warriors arrived, they immediately began to explore the strata, mine resources, and build factories. Due to the limited labor force among the G1 immigrants, they chose to hire local people to work in the factories. At this time, the relationship between the G1 and the locals of Losar was relatively harmonious. The locals were eager to work in the G1 factories, as it provided them with a higher income compared to traditional farming. In the second year after immigration began, the G1 population exceeded 25 million. They started to build rail transit systems, spaceports, and larger-scale natural resource extraction bases. The locals who actively traded with the G1 also adopted intelligent and automated agriculture, which helped them in large-scale agricultural production. However, the administration of Losar soon realized that the fragile small-scale peasant economy on their planet was being dismantled by the G1's automated industry. The local economic system was gradually being annexed by the G1, turning the locals into raw material suppliers and factory workers, stripping them of their economic independence. Additionally, the G1 factories and mines began to cause environmental damage. The G1, eager to complete their immigration and establish a second homeland, prioritized building high-capacity factories, which severely harmed the environment. The situation escalated when a local farmer discovered that one of his water sources had been contaminated by industrial waste. The green, harmful substances flowing into his farmland prompted him to sue the G1 factory at the Supreme Court of Losar. The court found the factory operators guilty and ordered them to close the factory and clean up the pollution. However, the G1 ignored the court's ruling, demonstrating their contempt for the local authorities. Angered by the G1's disregard, thousands of Losar locals stormed the factory, clashing with the factory guards. The guards, outnumbered, were beaten and thrown into the polluted river. The situation could have been contained, but 2 factory guards died from a combination of drinking contaminated water and internal injuries from the beating. In response, the factory manager purchased 2,000 B-1 combat robots from the Enterprise Alliance. When the locals organized another protest against the factory pollution, the B-1 combat robots were deployed. These ruthless robots easily overpowered the defenseless locals, whose most powerful weapons were Molotov cocktails and outdated DL-18 blaster pistols. The locals stood no chance against the B-1 combat robots. The conflict quickly turned bloody. Even though the B-1 combat robots' E-5 blaster rifles were set to non-lethal mode, many people were trampled or fatally injured by non-lethal beams hitting vital points like the eyes. The situation spiraled out of control, leading to a tragic and violent confrontation. Many locals on the planet Losar began to realize that the Given people did not respect their way of life or their expansion. The given people were solely focused on making Losar their new home. In response, the authorities of Losar sent a strongly worded letter of condemnation to Jiwen and the Principality of Dawn, but it was ignored. Left with no other options, the authorities called on the people to protest in Jiwen cities and factories. Although this approach seemed outrageous, it was a common tactic among planets with strong liberal ideologies at the time. These planets believed that by avoiding galactic conflicts, they could peacefully manage their own cities without the need for armed forces. They thought that organizing armed forces would create a negative and oppressive image. If they were attacked by pirates, they would simply hire mercenaries for protection. In fact, Losar had previously dealt with pirates by seeking help from the nearby Dark Planet, where the Quarren had taken their money and helped eliminate the pirate threat. However, the Dark Planet was no longer willing to assist them. With no other recourse, the Losar authorities resorted to protests. The Jiwen people's response was to deploy a Rookery Hook-class battleship filled with 600,000 B-1 combat robots. What began as friendly immigration quickly turned into an armed invasion and violent occupation. The local Losar people were easily overpowered by the combat robots. Several managers of the Planetary Authority were dragged out of their offices by the robots and thrown into the river, and a new group of officials, friendly to the Jiwen people, took over. The occupation of the planet was complete. Despite the occupation, the industrial production brought by the Jiwen people did benefit some locals who were not entirely opposed to their presence. Losar was originally an immigrant planet with hundreds of races, most of whom had come to escape war. After the establishment of the Galactic Empire, human supremacy led to discrimination and suppression of many non-human races in the inner and core circles, forcing them to immigrate to the outer ring. Losar became a chosen destination for many of these immigrants, so there were no indigenous races in the strict sense. As a result, many people were not particularly opposed to the given people's settlement and rule. The Jiwen people continued their immigration plan. Following the instructions of Tang Xiao, the Grand Duke of Dawn, the Quarren and Mon Calamari from the planet Dark also joined the effort. The planet Dark was not far from Losar, and in the original plot, both planets were important bases for the Rebel Alliance, relying on mutual support. The Quarren and Mon Calamari were among the most industrially developed races with the highest quality engineers in the Confederation of Independent Systems. During the Galactic Republic era, the Quarren and Mon Calamari were hostile to each other. The Mon Calamari supported the Galactic Republic, while the Quarren supported the Confederacy of Independent Systems. The Federation of Independent Systems sent Reeve Tamsin to the planet Dark to interfere in its internal affairs, triggering a civil war. The Galactic Republic also got involved, leading to further conflict. Under Tang Xiao's guidance, however, the two races began to cooperate, contributing to the industrial and engineering prowess of the Confederation of Independent Systems. Xiao's operation placed all the blame for the civil war on Reeve Tamsin, making him a common enemy of both the Quarren and Mon Calamari. This united front allowed them to expel the Galactic Republic and reunite the planet Dark. As a result, the current state of the planet Dark is much stronger than the fragmented state depicted in the original plot. Tang Xiao decided to have the thoughts. Given people immigrate to the planet Losar, which is near the planet Dark, due to this strategic consideration. Among the three major star regions under the direct jurisdiction of the Principality of Dawn, the industry of Rendili Interstellar Power Company has begun to flourish, showing great potential for development without needing additional resources. On the other hand, the industrial production capacity of the planet Yagodur is unstable due to Trisolaran environmental issues, making it unsafe to house the Titan battleships dock there. Therefore, Tang Xiao aimed to win over the planet Dark and establish a new industrial center on the planet Losar. This move would also serve as a strategic countermeasure against the Galactic Empire. In the original plot, the Rebel Alliance, with the support of the Mon Calamari, managed to push back the Galactic Empire to achieve victory. Tang Xiao believed that by uniting the Quarren and the Mon Calamari, they could provide a more powerful impetus for the destruction of the Galactic Empire. With the capture of the Salukami planet and the Confederacy of Independent Systems facing collapse, the planet Dark needed a new direction. Tang Xiao and the leaders of Dark quickly agreed to construct a new Titan shipyard and industrial zone on the planet Losar. The Titan shipyard on the planet Yagodur would be dismantled and relocated after the second Anchoron-class Titan battleship, Yuanzhu, was put into service. Subsequently, the planet Yagodur would function solely as a fortress planet. In the third year after the Thoth, given people established a foothold on the planet Losar, the Free Dark Volunteer Engineering Corps, the largest industrial company on the planet, Dark and within the Confederation of Independent Systems, sent an engineering team to Losar. They began constructing factories and mines. However, this blatant invasion sparked resistance among the people of Losar. Numerous rebels and underground resistance organizations emerged, attacking transport convoys, mines, and even given cities. The resistance movement grew increasingly intense, causing significant problems for the given people. In response, they sent more immigrants to Losar, leading to ongoing overt and covert conflicts between the two sides. Be repaired, she jumped up excitedly and ran off towards Uncle Will's house. Ashla watched the little girl disappear into the distance, her smile fading slightly as she turned back to the task at hand. She carefully examined the worn-out parts of the machinery, her hands moving with practiced precision. Despite the primitive conditions, she had a knack for making things work, a skill that had earned her the respect and admiration of the villagers. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the fields. The tranquility of the scene was a stark contrast to the turmoil that raged across the galaxy. Here, on the remote planet of Rada, life moved at a slower pace, untouched by the conflicts that plagued other worlds. Ashla's thoughts drifted to the Principality of Dawn and their secret industrial base on the planet Losar. She knew that the remoteness of the location was a strategic advantage, making it difficult for the Galactic Empire to launch a successful attack. The planet Mon Cala, or Planet Dark as it was once known, had faced similar challenges, but had become a crucial stronghold for the Rebel Alliance. Tang Xiao's plan to use the planet's isolation to his advantage was a sound one. By cutting off the supply lines of the Galactic Empire fleet, he could slowly wear them down. It was a tactic that had proven effective in the past, and Ashla had no doubt it would work again. Her musings were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She looked up to see the little girl returning, clutching the circuit breaker and energy transmission pipe. Uncle Will followed behind, a broad smile on his weathered face. "Here you go, Ashla," he said, handing over the parts. "I found these in the old storage shed. They should do the trick." "Thank you, Uncle Will," Ashla replied, taking the parts and setting to work. The little girl watched in awe as Ashla deftly installed the new components, her hands moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Within an hour, the repairs were complete. Ashla stood back and wiped her hands on a rag, a satisfied smile on her face. "There you go. Hercules 3 is as good as new." The little girl beamed with joy and hugged Ashla tightly. "Thank you, Sister Ashla. You're the best." Ashla laughed and patted the girl's head. "You're welcome. Now go and tell your parents that Hercules 3 is ready for the next planting season." As the girl ran off to share the good news, Ashla felt a sense of fulfillment. Despite the simplicity of her life on Rada, she knew that her skills were making a difference. And in a galaxy torn apart by war, that was something to be proud of. The sun dipped below the horizon, and Ashla gathered her tools, ready to head back to her modest home. She knew that the peace of Rada was fragile, but for now, it was enough. And as long as she could help her fellow villagers, she would continue to do so, one repair at a time. As soon as she realized the parts could still be used, the little girl became ecstatic and ran off, jumping up and down with joy. A calm smile appeared on Ahsoka's face. While the girl fetched the parts, Ahsoka emerged from beneath the agricultural machinery, wiped her oil-stained hands, and picked up a cold glass from the table. She took a sip of juice and looked up at the clear sky. The smile on her face gradually faded, replaced by a look of deep sorrow. "Execute Order 66. More than 3 years ago, that command had nearly shattered all her beliefs and hopes. The voice that delivered it was both familiar and alien, cold and cruel. The owner of that voice had once been her closest partner, her most respected teacher, and her most reliable comrade in arms. They had fought side by side, traversing nearly every major battlefield in the galaxy, battling the evil separatist forces to the bitter end. That voice belonged to Anakin Skywalker. Yes, she was Ahsoka Tano. Ashla was just her pseudonym. Execute Order 66. When Ahsoka Tano heard this order from the communicator held by a clone officer and saw the cold, cruel expression in the image, she nearly collapsed. This command signified Anakin Skywalker's complete betrayal. He had betrayed the Jedi Order, the Galactic Republic, his comrades, and his loved ones. Shortly after, news arrived that Anakin Skywalker had been killed by the Death Angel. Ahsoka even felt that this was a form of relief and redemption for him. 3 years ago, when the Galactic Republic was officially reorganized into the Galactic Empire, Ahsoka Tano had looked up at the sky, trying to find the direction of Coruscant, searching for a last glimmer of hope in the vast starry expanse. But there was no response. Completely disheartened, Ahsoka went into hiding at the edge of the galaxy, concealing her identity. Planet Lada was the second place she chose to hide. She settled there, making a living by repairing agricultural machinery for the local farmers, leading a peaceful life. Yet, whenever she touched the cold machinery, Anakin Skywalker's voice echoed in her mind. She remembered him as sunny, cheerful, brave, and determined. It was he who had taught her how to repair these machines through constant fighting and teaching. Even in seclusion, Anakin's teachings continued to influence her. Ahsoka let out a long sigh. The galaxy had become a dark stage for the Necromancer and Darth Sidious to compete for power. But where was the light? At that moment, she suddenly noticed several dark figures rapidly approaching in the sky. It was a spaceship. Ahsoka was alarmed because there were only a few operational spaceships on planet Lada. The sudden appearance of these ships in large numbers could only mean one thing, either pirates or the Galactic Empire. End of chapter?